Chapter 644. Not only him, but Li Qianxue was also surprised. Standing at the side, he couldn't react for a moment. Qingsang, are you going to give birth? Hua Jinyao, who was dumbfounded, asked again. Su Qingsang couldn't answer his question. She grabbed his arm tightly and said, "Quick, take me to the hospital." Hua Jinyao said those words through gritted teeth, as if he had finally come to his senses. Hospital? Yes, the hospital. Quick, I'll carry you to the hospital. He couldn't care less about Li Qianxue, who was standing by the side. He picked up Su Qingsang and walked toward the parking lot. Li Qianxue wanted to stop them, but she slapped her forehead and quickly went back into the house to tell the Hua and Li families the news. Hua Jinyao almost wanted to fly to the hospital, but it snowed the day before. No matter how hard he tried, he had to consider the road conditions. Unable to increase his speed, he became more and more nervous, especially when he saw Su Qingsang's pale face. What do you think? Qingsang, are you in pain? Bear with it. It won't take long. Although it was said to be fast, it was impossible to drive fast on this snowy road. Su Qingsang only had a stomachache. She knew that she was still far from being able to live. Seeing Hua Jinyao's pale face, she still tried to comfort him. Hua Jinyao, you forgot one thing. What? You didn't bring the delivery bag. The delivery kit had been prepared at home, but Hua Jinyao had only been focused on taking her to the hospital and hadn't brought it with him. Then what should we do? Hua Jinyao didn't even dare to slam on the brakes and slowed down the car. His face was full of anxiety. What should we do? Don't be so nervous. Don't worry, my mom will bring it over. Now you just have to concentrate on driving. Drive, yes, drive. Hua Jinyao focused on driving again, but he couldn't help it. From time to time, he would turn his face to look at Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang's stomach hurt. In order to distract herself, she took out her phone and called Sun Huiya. She told her that she might be in labor. He was relieved when he got Sun Huiya's confirmation that she would rush to the hospital immediately. He hung up the phone and looked out the car window. It snowed in Rome City, and the whole city was covered in silver, like a fairy tale world. The pain in her abdomen began to intensify. She adjusted her breathing and tried to calm herself down. Hua Jinyao rushed to the hospital as soon as possible. Hua Jinyao often came to the first hospital, and so did the obstetrics and gynecology department. But he had never been so anxious and flustered in this place before. He ran all the way with Su Qingsang in his arms. Sun Huiya lived close to the hospital, so she had already arrived. In addition to Sun Huiya, there were also Deputy Chief Shun Lingyun, Yang Lu, Ling Fei, Li Ting, and some experienced doctors. Su Qingsang was pregnant with twins. If possible, she wanted to give birth naturally. However, they had to examine Su Qingsang first. Sun Huiya arranged for Su Qingsang to do some basic checkups, and Hua Jinyao accompanied her the whole time. After the examination, Sun Huiya and Su Qingsang looked at the various data together. Qingsang, you're doing well. Try to have a natural birth. Okay. Su Qingsang was a doctor herself, so she didn't need Sun Huiya to say anything. She cooperated with her the whole time. Soon, the rest of the Hua family arrived. Old Master Hua, Hua Mingguang and his wife, and the Li family. Li Qianxue looked at Su Qingsang, her eyes full of worry. Qingsang, how are you? Would it work? Why don't we cut it open? Li Qianxue didn't care about anything else. She only wanted her daughter to be fine. Mom, Su Qingsang was actually really in pain, but Li Qianxue's concern made her feel warm and a little helpless. Dr. Sun said that the situation is very good. I can give birth on my own. Don't try to persuade me. But Mom, don't worry. I'm a doctor myself. I know what's best. I won't joke around with my body. Then I want to go in with you. Mom, don't accompany me. Grandpa is still here. Don't you want to accompany Grandpa? Don't worry. Director Sun and Director Shun are very experienced. They have also delivered many twins. There's no problem at all. Don't worry. No matter how worried Li Qianxue was, she could only choose to believe Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang planned to go into the delivery room. She had been there many times. Every time, she gave birth to someone else's child. This was the first time she went in to give birth herself. Qingsang. Hua Jinyao went forward and held her hand. Qing sang, how are you? Does it still hurt? Can you give birth on your own? Is there a problem? Will it be dangerous? I often see on TV that it's difficult to give birth. Why don't you listen to your mother and have a C-section? Are you scared? Su Qingsan's question was a joke. It was the first time she had seen Hua Jinyao so incoherent and nervous. She was joking, but Hua Jinyao nodded very seriously. Yes, I'm so scared. Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment. Hua Jinyao held her hand tightly. I'm really scared. Qingsang, you'll be fine, right? Of course. It was the first time Su Qingsang had seen Hua Jinyao so panicked. Her stomach was hurting, but because of his reaction, she felt that the pain wasn't as intense as before. Director Sun is here. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao's state. She had originally wanted him to accompany her into the delivery room, but looking at him now, she gave up. Just wait outside. No. Hua Jinyao was very determined. I want to go in with you. Are you sure? Su Qingsang was quite calm. Actually, you don't need to go in with me. Be it Chief Sun or Chief Shun, they were both very experienced doctors. With them here, I'll definitely be fine. I want to go in with you. Hua Jinyao was very persistent. Su Qingsang nodded. Okay, then don't cause any trouble later. I promise I won't. Hua Jinyao raised 3 fingers and promised. However, when he really entered the delivery room, Hua Jinyao realized that his promise seemed to have been made too early. Su Qingsang was very calm. This calmness was even calmer than when she was on the operating table. She slept on the delivery bed and listened to Sun Hui's instructions. Later, when I tell you to use force, you can use force. Okay. Su Qingsang was in so much pain that her face turned pale. However, Hua Jinyao's face was even paler than hers. Honey, if you're in pain, you can bite my hand. Hua Jinyao grabbed her hand very tightly. It was obvious that he was very nervous. In contrast to his nervousness, Su Qingsang was calm. Why would I bite your hand for no reason? Aren't you in pain? I can bear it. Don't bear it. You'd better bite me. Su Qingsang took a deep breath. Hua Jinyao, calm down. Don't forget that I'm a doctor. Oh. Hua Jinyao watched as her face became paler and paler. Her breathing became heavier, and the sweat on her forehead increased. Honey, are you really not going to bite me? Sun Hui had already started to prepare for the delivery. Seeing Hua Jinyao like this, she inexplicably wanted to laugh. She held back. Shut up. Su Qingsang glared at him. Don't speak. Qingsang, you can start using force now. Su Qingsang began to use force. She didn't scream like an ordinary pregnant woman. That wouldn't help, and it would also cause her to lose strength. When Sun Hui told her to use force, she used force. When she told her to relax, she relaxed. Very good, that's it. Come, take a deep breath and use force. Su Qingsang was using force, but she felt that Hua Jinyao's breathing was getting heavier and heavier. Sweetheart, Hua Jinyao had never felt so weak in his 31 years of life as he did today. He held Su Qingsang's hand tightly. Why isn't the child out yet? Su Qingsang didn't have the time to talk to him. She finally realized that letting Hua Jinyao in was a mistake. I can already see the head. Qingsang, don't be distracted. Use force. Hua Jinyao became more and more nervous. Su Qingsang could even feel that her wrist was about to turn red from his pinching. She was in great pain. Not only did it hurt below, but it also hurt above. Hua Jinyao, let go of me. She gritted her teeth and said, but her voice was too soft. Hua Jinyao didn't hear her at all. His attention was completely attracted by Sun Hui's words. Qingsang, did you hear that? The child is coming out? Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. She wanted to break free from his hand and use force. She felt something coming out her body. It's coming out, it's coming out. It's a boy. Congratulations. Sun Hui carried the child out, and Hua Jinyao's grip tightened. Qingsang, did you hear that? It's coming out, it's coming out. Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. She had ears. She could hear it herself. Wah! She heard the sound of the child crying. However, she didn't have time to relax. Her stomach hurt even more. She had been in pain for too long, so long that she couldn't hold on any longer. Sun Hui's expression was solemn. She placed her hand on Su Qing-sang's stomach and looked at Su Qing-sang's pale and exhausted face. Qing-sang, you can't relax. There's another one in your stomach. Hua Jinyao's happiness didn't last for more than 10 seconds. Sun Hui's words made him nervous. There's another one? Yes. Sun Hui had also delivered twins before. She had a lot of experience. Qing-sang, you should rest for a while. Take a rest first. We'll start exerting ourselves later to give birth to the other child. Okay. Su Qing-sang was weak. She had already exhausted most of her strength just now. Now, she really didn't have any strength. Ling Fei took the warm water that she had prepared early in the morning and gave it to Su Qing-sang. She took 2 sips and closed her eyes to rest. Qing-sang, you can't fall asleep. Sun Hui was afraid that she would fall asleep. Wait a minute. I'll help you check the condition of the other child now. Su Qing-sang couldn't say anything. She could only nod weakly. Hua Jinyao looked at her current state and felt extremely sorry for her. He held Su Qing-sang's hand tightly. He had no intention of looking at the child that had just been born. Qing-sang, listen to me. The position inside isn't very good right now, but don't be nervous. Let's work hard together. Su Qing-sang had no strength left. She looked at Sun Hui and nodded silently. Sun Hui's expression was solemn. Giving birth to twins naturally was a relatively difficult thing. It required both children to be in a normal position with their heads down. But now that one child was out, the other child's arm was exposed first. She and Shen Lingyun looked at each other and saw the solemn look in each other's eyes. Su Qing-sang really didn't have any strength left. The pain in her stomach was even worse than before. It was as if a knife was constantly stabbing her abdomen, and the pain even made large drops of sweat fall from her forehead. Sun Hui placed her hand on her abdomen, trying to artificially adjust the position of the fetus. Su Qing-sang was in so much pain that her body twitched. Hua Jinyao felt that he was about to faint. He couldn't care about the child at all. All his attention was on Su Qing-sang. Qing-sang? Qing-sang, how are you? Are you okay? Su Qing-sang couldn't respond to him. She was in so much pain that she didn't have any strength at all. Director Sunday, child, can you turn around? He gritted his teeth and asked these 2 questions. Then, he met Sun Hui's solemn face. I'm trying to help you adjust the position of the fetus. Don't be nervous. You're also a doctor. You know that this is normal. Su Qing-sang had checked the information before. If some twins had a natural birth, it would take a long time before they could be born. In the past, almost none of the twins that she had delivered had a natural birth. They were all delivered by cesarean section. Since she had planned to have a natural birth, it wouldn't be as easy as a cesarean section. She closed her eyes to rest. She was extremely sleepy, in pain, and tired. She almost couldn't hold on any longer. When she was a doctor, she knew that pregnancy and childbirth were very difficult, but she didn't expect it to be so difficult. Qing-sang, wake up. Don't sleep. She heard Sun Hui's voice in a daze. Not only him, but Hua Jinyao's voice was also heard. She wanted to open her eyes, but it was very difficult. She couldn't open her eyes at all. Her body hurt so much that she didn't even have the strength to open her eyes. Qing-sang, wake up. The child is coming out. You have to cooperate with me. Qing-sang? Qing-sang, she heard people calling her, but she couldn't open her eyes. She was so tired, as if she had lost all her strength. At this moment, Su Qing-sang was no longer the calm and rational doctor. She knew that there was another one in her stomach, but she was too tired and had no strength. Qing-sang? Qing-sang. Hua Jinyao looked at the pale and powerless Su Qing-sang. He realized that he couldn't wake her up no matter how hard he tried. He was terrified and looked at Sun Hui. What should we do? Dr. Sun? Qing-sang can't wake up now. Why don't we perform a C-section on her? We can't do it now. Sun Hui's expression was more serious than before. The child's head has already fallen down and is stuck at the entrance of the uterus. At this time, we can only wake her up and let her give birth to the child by herself. Qing-sang, did you hear that? Qing-sang, wake up quickly. Hua Jinyao had never been as panicked as he was at this moment in his life. He was panicking and at a loss. He didn't know what to do. He held Su Qingsang's hand tightly and kept kissing her sweaty cheek. Qingsang, wake up. We still have a baby. Don't sleep. Try harder. Don't sleep, okay? Su Qingsang couldn't hear it. Or perhaps she could, but she couldn't wake up. She just felt tired. She felt very tired, very tired. She didn't have any strength, let alone giving birth. Qingsang? Qingsang? Sun Hui's expression was rather ugly. She reached out to pinch Su Qingsang's philtrum. Qingsang, wake up. Try harder. Wake up. Just once. Wake up. Su Qingsang felt noisy and tired. Some things didn't matter to her, but when it really happened to her, it was often a doctor who didn't treat himself. In fact, her previous performance was already quite good, but she was pregnant with twins. Qingsang? Hu Jinyao called her a few times, but he couldn't wake Su Qingsang up. His heart became more and more flustered. He held her hand, bent down, and placed her hand on his face. He leaned down and looked at Su Qingsang, who had her eyes tightly closed and was exhausted. Qingsang, I beg you wake up. Listen to me. There's something I've never told you. Don't you want to know what it is? Su Qingsang heard it, but she was really too tired and in too much pain. She didn't have the strength. Qingsang. Hu Jinyao kissed her cheek a little hard. He wasn't even afraid of hurting her. He wanted her to wake up. Qingsang, I love you. He kissed her forehead, her eyelids, the tip of her nose, and her lips. Looking at Su Qingsang, who didn't react, Hu Jinyao felt his eyes start to sting and swell. Qingsang, did you hear that? I love you. I really, really love you. He didn't see Su Qingsang's brows move slightly. He just pressed his face against her cheek. Do you still remember the first time we met? It was also in the hospital. You stood in the hospital corridor and said that the wedding was canceled in such an imposing manner. At that time, I thought that this woman was really decisive and strong. You proposed to me, and you asked me if I wanted to marry you. You didn't see the look in your eyes at that time. There was a hint of nervousness in her anticipation. She was afraid of being rejected, afraid of losing face, especially in front of such a scumbag. Hu Jinyao looked at her stubborn, but unable to hide the trace of vulnerability in her eyes, and his heart skipped a beat. He generously agreed to her request. He agreed to marry her. At that time, he thought, so what? Wasn't it just marriage? Anyway, Grandpa had wanted him to get married for a long time. This woman, with such a personality, Grandpa should like her, right? Married life was much better than he had imagined. Su Qingsang's personality looked a little cold on the surface, but her heart was as warm as fire. Her coldness was protective, and she only used it on people she was not familiar with. Her background, her personality, and everything about her. After slowly understanding her, Hu Jinyao found that there was a shadow of Su Qingsang in his heart and eyes. Because of the accident in his childhood, there seemed to be nothing wrong with him on the surface, but only he knew that there was a wall in his heart. Not just anyone could enter the heart of an impenetrable fortress. However, Su Qingsang was able to push down his wall bit by bit and stubbornly moved in. Qingsang, I love you. Do you hear that? Wake up quickly. Okay. He had never tried to cry for anyone other than his family in his life. The few times he was touched were all for Su Qingsang. Now, Hu Jinyao's eyes were full of tears. He enjoyed his married life with Su Qingsang. He liked to see her every day after work. He liked the warmth in the house because of her existence. He liked to have her by his side, even if she didn't do anything. Without Su Qingsang, he couldn't imagine how he would live such a long life in the future. Qingsang, I'm begging you. Wake up. I promise you that as long as you wake up, I'll listen to you in the future. Qingsang, he felt his face itch and instinctively stepped back. He looked at Su Qingsang's face. She was still weak and pale, but her eyes were open. You are so noisy. After saying these 3 words, she looked at Sun Huiya. Director's son, the child is coming out. You have to work harder. Sun Huiya's face was full of joy when she saw that she was awake. Although the situation just now wasn't dangerous for adults, it was easy for children to suffocate if they were stuck inside for too long. Come, Qingsang, listen to me and cooperate with me. When I tell you to work hard, you start working hard. Just once, let's try to succeed once and give birth to the child. Su Qing Sang nodded weakly. 1, 2, 3, use more strength. Su Qing Sang really didn't have any strength left. Amidst the pain and exhaustion, she saw Hua Jinyao's face that was as pale as a sheet of paper. She suddenly raised her hand and gently stroked his hand. Hua Jinyao grabbed her hand and pressed it tightly against his face. Hua Jinyao. Su Qing Sang squeezed out those words with all her strength. I love you too. After saying this, she used all her strength. This time, the feeling of relaxation really came. Something left her body. She heard Sun Hui's voice. I've given birth. This is a daughter. Qing Sang, you've given birth to a pair of twins. Su Qing Sang curled her lips. She wanted to smile, but she couldn't smile now. All her perseverance had been used up in that instant. Su Qing Sang, who had relaxed, fainted completely. Before she fainted, she only heard Hua Jinyao's extremely sharp and panicked cry. Qing Sang, Qing Sang. The people who came to visit her in the ward came and left, and came again. There were already several groups of people coming and going. However, Su Qing Sang, who had fallen asleep, didn't wake up. Hua Jinyao had been by Su Qing Sang's side the whole time. He didn't have the time to care about others, let alone the child. Sun Huia had clearly told him that Su Qing Sang was fine. She had only fallen asleep because she had lost too much blood and exhausted her energy after giving birth to 2 children in a row. However, he couldn't be at ease until he saw Su Qing Sang wake up. He held her hand and didn't let go no matter how the people who came to visit Su Qing Sang came and went. It had been a day since Su Qing Sang gave birth. Today was already the 3rd day of the new year. However, Su Qing Sang still hadn't woken up. Hua Jinyao couldn't sit still anymore. He resisted the urge to ring the bell and told himself that he had to believe in Director Sun and believe that Su Qing Sang was fine. It had been snowing for the past 2 days. In the evening, the snow outside finally stopped. Hua Jinyao looked out of the window and then at Su Qing Sang. He pressed her hand against his face again. Qing Sang? Look, the snow has stopped. Didn't you say that you like to make snowmen? Wake up quickly. When you wake up, I'll make one for you to see. Qing Sang, you've given birth to a pair of twins. The doctors in your hospital all say that you're amazing. Don't you want to get up and see the children? To Hua Jinyao's disappointment, no matter what he said this time, Su Qing Sang didn't wake up. His heart began to grow anxious. When Sun Huia entered the ward to see Su Qing Sang again, he couldn't help it. Chapter 645. When Qing Sang gave birth, she wasn't in a good state, and she lost so much blood. This will make your body weak, and you need to rest. Just because she needs to rest doesn't mean that she's unconscious, right? Hua Jinyao was really anxious. Didn't you say that she's fine? Since there's no problem, why isn't he waking up? I only said it's not a big problem. I didn't say she can wake up immediately. Then how will she wake up? Sun Huia looked at Su Qing Sang. After sleeping for a night, her complexion was a little better than yesterday, but it was still as pale as a sheet. The birth of the twins had greatly damaged Su Qing Sang's vitality, so it was normal for her to be like this. However, looking at Hua Jinyao's anxious and worried expression, Sun Huia didn't know what to say. Don't be too nervous. Maybe he'll wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow? You still have to wait until tomorrow? How could Hua Jinyao wait? He couldn't wait an hour, not even a minute. Li Qianxue looked at Hua Jinyao. She was shocked by Hua Jinyao's performance in the past 2 days. However, looking at Hua Jinyao's unshaven face and wrinkled clothes, she couldn't help but step forward and ask, Jinyao, since the doctor said that Qing Sang will wake up tomorrow, you can just wait for another day. You see, you can't help much even if you stay here. Why don't you go back and tidy yourself up first? Hua Jinyao stood there without moving. He didn't want to leave Su Qing Sang's side for a minute. Lu Tongjiao was there as well, followed by Ms. Zhou. Ms. Zhou was carrying a lunchbox and a bag. Jinyao, my in-laws have a point. How can you look like this? Go tidy yourself up. As she spoke, Aunt Zhou stepped forward and handed the bag to Hua Jinyao. I've packed a few sets of clothes for you. You can go into the bathroom to take a shower and change your clothes. Even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about the child, right? How are you going to meet the child later when you're in such a mess? Hu Jingyao looked at Lu Tongjia, then at Li Qianxue, and finally at Su Qingseng, who was still asleep. He gave up and went into the bathroom to change. Li Qianxue and Lu Tongjia looked at each other. Both of them were worried. By right, she had already given birth and rested. Why hasn't he woken up after a day? Hu Jingyao took a shower and soon came out. After changing his clothes, he looked more energetic. As soon as he came out, he sat in front of Su Qingsong's bed, his eyes full of worry. Li Qianxue and Lu Tongjia were the only two elders in the ward. Old Master Li, Hu Jingyao, and the others had accompanied him for the whole day and most of the night. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore and went back to rest. Sun Huya looked at Hu Jingyao, sighed, and left. At night, the elders all went to sleep. However, Hu Jingyao refused to go to bed. He also refused to let the caregivers or the aunties take care of Su Qingseng. He had not taken a look at the child since it was born, and he did not want to. He just stayed with Su Qingseng and refused to leave no matter what. Qingseng, don't you want to wake up and see our child? You see, you haven't seen them yet, although I haven't seen it either. Su Qingseng fainted not long after she was born. When a second child was finally born, Su Qingseng was completely exhausted. She couldn't wake up. So don't expect me to tell you what the two children look like. I haven't seen them either. Do you want to wake up soon? And then come see them with me? Qingseng, you were the one who asked me to be a father. I hope that I can experience all the first times in my life with you. His eyes were a little red. He didn't want to sleep. He gently placed his face beside Su Qingsong's arm. He just looked at her sleeping face. Honey, I'll wait for you. When Su Qingseng opened her eyes, she felt that her body was limp and she had no strength at all. She seemed to have had a long sleep. When she woke up, her spirit needed to recover bit by bit. She saw sunlight shining in the ward, and there was snow on the windowsill. The sunlight refracted on the snowflakes, shining with crystal clear light. It was exceptionally beautiful. Following the light, she saw the top of his black hair. Hu Jingyao was sleeping by her bed. His face was covered with stubble. There was also a circle of darkness under his eyes. She remembered hearing a lot of words when she was asleep. When she woke up, she didn't remember it clearly. She only remembered that Hu Jingyao said that he loved her. She raised her hand and gently stroked the top of his hair, then moved it to his face. As soon as her hand touched Hu Jingyao's face, he grabbed it. He raised his head and looked at her with wide eyes. There was obvious surprise in his eyes. You're awake? Qingseng, you're awake? Su Qingseng wanted to speak, but she couldn't. Her throat was so dry. Hu Jingyao poured her a glass of warm water and watched her drink it. Su Qingseng felt much better. Only then did she see Hu Jingyao's appearance clearly. He looked even worse than when he was asleep. So ugly, Su Qingseng complained. Su Qingseng complained. She looked at his red, dark circles and stubble on his face. You're not handsome anymore. You're awake. You're awake. Hu Jingyao didn't have time to pay attention to her teasing. He could only express his feelings by kissing her palm continuously. You're awake, Qingseng. You're awake. It's really great. You're awake. Where's the child? Su Qingseng felt her stomach was empty. Only then did she remember that she had given birth to the child yesterday. How's the child? I don't know. You don't know? You fainted after giving birth to the child. I didn't have time to take care of the child. Hu Jingyao couldn't hide his worry. Su Qingseng stared at him with her eyes wide open. Why are you like this? Then, I've been sleeping for so long. You should at least take a look, right? No. Hu Jingyao was very willful. He held Su Qingsong's hand tightly, and the expression on his face was rare. If you hadn't woken up, I would have sent them away. Hu Jingyao. Su Qingseng was angry. She glared at Hu Jingyao for a long time and finally said helplessly, Forget it. Bring the child to me now. It seems to be in the incubator. Hu Jingyao wasn't sure. In fact, he hadn't cared about the child since it was born. He had focused all his attention on Su Qingseng. Is the child okay? Why is it in the incubator? Su Qingsong's face was full of worry. At this moment, a voice sounded. Don't listen to his nonsense. The child is fine. The eldest went back to the nursery for observation yesterday, and the second is still in the incubator. Don't worry, everything is normal. I only let it stay in the incubator to ensure that it's safe. Mom, Su Qing-sang saw Li Qianxue coming. She was carrying a big bag in her hand. Seeing that Su Qing-sang had woken up, Li Qianxue heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, if Su Qing-sang continued to sleep, she wouldn't be able to take it. I didn't expect you to wake up so early. It just so happens that there's breakfast here and the soup I asked the auntie to make. Qing-sang, come and drink the soup when you wake up. Director Sun said that you've injured your vitality. Next, you have to listen to me and take good nourishment. You have to recover your body. Mom, it's not like what you said. This nourishment isn't random. I don't care. Drink this bowl of chicken soup first. Okay, I'll drink it. Su Qing-sang wouldn't argue with Li Qianxue over such a small matter. She thought that she had only slept for 1 day, but she didn't know that she had slept for 2 days. She got up and went to the bathroom to wash up. When she came out, she was told that she had actually slept for 2 days. She was stunned herself. That's impossible, right? I've always thought that I was in good health. You're still talking about it. You gave birth on the 2nd day of the Chinese New Year and slept until the 4th day of the Chinese New Year. That's you. Li Qianxue's words were filled with heartache. Su Qing-sang stuck out her tongue and sat down on the bed again. She cooperated and finished the chicken soup. She was really hungry. After a bowl of soup, she felt that her energy had recovered a lot. I want to see the children. I'll take you there. Hu Jinyao had just gone to find a wheelchair. He knew that Su Qing-sang would definitely want to see the children when she woke up. There were 2 children, one in the nursery and the other in the incubator. Seeing that Su Qing-sang had woken up, Sun Huiya, who had specially come to see her, told her about the situation. The older one is fine. The younger one was stuck in the uterus for a long time when he was born. His breathing was a little weak when he was born, but his vital signs are normal. There's no problem, don't worry. Okay, thank you. Director Sunday DeBeo had stayed in the nursery for 2 days. His facial features had grown a little more than when he was born. His little face was red, and he looked very healthy. DeBeo was 8 kilograms when he was born. Xiaobao was 5 kilograms. Xiaobao was lighter, but they're all very healthy. Qing-sang, you're amazing. Su Qing-sang looked at the little baby and felt her heart soften. Director Sun, can I carry him back to the ward? I want to breastfeed him. Of course you can. You can try to let him drink milk, but you have to. I reckon that there won't be enough milk. Su Qing-sang smiled. Whether it was enough or not, she didn't want to rely on others to breastfeed the child. She wanted to do it herself. After looking at DeBeo, she wanted to look at Xiaobao. The little girl said that her skin wasn't red like that of ordinary children. Instead, it was white and tender. She was small and looked very cute. When Su Qing-sang saw her daughter, she felt as if her heart was about to melt. It was completely different from seeing her son. Jinyao, that's our daughter. Yes. Hu Jinyao also saw her. It was his first time seeing his daughter. Her small face and tightly closed eyes. She slept there and didn't need to do anything, but Hu Jinyao could feel that his life was complete. He bent down and hugged Su Qing-sang tightly. Wife, thank you. Only then did he truly feel that he had become a father. A son, a daughter, and Su Qing-sang. They would be his entire world now and in the future. Thank you. You're welcome. Su Qing-sang smiled. She glanced at Sun Huiya. Does she need to be observed for a long time? No need. She can leave the incubator tomorrow. Sun Huiya smiled. Your daughter is like you. She's also very strong. Su Qing-sang smiled so much that her eyes narrowed. Her body hadn't fully recovered yet, so Sun Huiya asked her to go back and rest first. As for contact with the child, there was no rush. There would always be a chance. Li Qianxue had already seen her grandson yesterday, but now that she saw him again, she still couldn't help but want to hug him. He looks so good. He looks like Hu Jinyao when he was young. Lu Tongjia looked at the child from the side. Now that he had grown a little, his facial features were even more obvious. I think his eyebrows and eyes look a little like Qing Song's. He's so young, and you can tell who he looks like? Su Yusin. who had rushed over, glanced at the little baby, and clicked his tongue. Why do I feel like no one looks like him? How can you say that? Li Qianxue couldn't help but pat her son on the head. What nonsense are you talking about? It's true. Only you guys can tell who he looks like. I can tell. I think he looks like me. Su Yusin didn't stand on ceremony at all. Haven't you heard of him? Nephews look like uncles. Su Qingsang couldn't help but laugh. When she laughed, she felt a little pain in her abdomen. She just couldn't help it. You look like Qingsang. Who do you think the child looks like? So, Su Yusin said rather shamelessly, he has to look like me. Lu Tongjia couldn't stop laughing. She was very amused by Su Yusin. Su Qingsang looked at the scene in front of her and felt that it was really good. What's the child's name? Li Qianxue looked at Lu Tongjia. If the name isn't decided so quickly, let's call him by his nickname first. Debao's nickname is Xiang Xiang, and Xiaobao's nickname is Nian Yan. Xiang Xiang? Okay. Lu Tongjia hugged him and thought about it. Looking at the tender little face, her eyes suddenly turned red. Mom. Hua Jinyao stood next to her and put his hand on Lu Tongjia's shoulder. He didn't say anything, but the name had already said everything. It's okay. I'm happy. Lu Tongjia looked at the children in her arms. The pain she had felt in the past had lessened a lot because of the birth of these two children. There were still regrets, but she would learn to let them go. People always had to look forward. A day later, Su Qingsang had mostly recovered. Because it was a natural birth, she was discharged from the hospital after observation. Following her out of the hospital were two adorable, fair, and delicate babies. When they returned home, old Master Hua, who had wanted to celebrate, could only suppress his excitement under Su Qingsang's stop. The children were still young. It was indeed not good for there to be too many people coming and going. They could only wait until the full moon. But even if they couldn't celebrate, old Master Hua's joy was obvious. The relatives of the Hua family also knew. Other than those who had gone to the hospital before, many people came to see the twins. Of course, not everyone could see them. Su Qingsang was upstairs with the children. They weren't very familiar with her. They only knew that Su Qingsang had given birth to a pair of twins, but they couldn't see the two children. If Su Qingsang was alone, she wouldn't be able to take care of the two babies. Even with Li Qianxue and Lu Tongjia, it was the same. What would they do? The Hua family hired 2 nannies and 2 aunties to take care of the 2 babies. Li Qianxue took advantage of the New Year's holiday to stay. Every day, she looked at her grandchildren and felt her heart soften. After the 7th day, Su Yusin and Old Master Li returned to Lin City first. Li Qianxue continued to stay, wanted to spend a few more days with her daughter. Hua Jinyao returned to work. Although he wanted to spend more time with Su Qingsang and her children, there were still things in the company that he needed to deal with. However, he didn't go out to socialize at all. If there was anything, he would leave it to Yang Wenchang and Zhang Yang. If he really needed to make a decision, he would go to the company. He even threw some of the work to Hua Mingguang, and he called his behavior accompanying the children during the confinement period. Hua Jinyao learned how to be a stay-at-home father. There were nannies and aunties at home, but most of the time, he preferred to do it himself. He still remembered how he felt the first time he hugged Xiang Yan. He also remembered how he felt the first time he hugged Nian Yan. When the 2 children were in his hands, he felt as if he had hugged the world. The honor of changing diapers for the first time fell on Xiang Yan. Perhaps it was because, as the older brother, his body was better than his sister's. Xiang Yan ate more. In just a few days, he had already distanced himself from Nian Yan. His face was red, and he looked energetic. He cried loudly. Sometimes, when he cried, it felt as if the entire floor could hear him. When he cried for the first time, Hua Jinyao was still a little confused. He understood that the child had only peed on his body, so he personally changed the child's diaper. He was a little clumsy, but he was especially careful. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao and suddenly had a feeling. She thought that Hua Jinyao would definitely be a very good father in the future. He would give all his love to these 2 children. Although he thought about it, what made his heart ache even more was Nian Yan. Contrary to what he thought, Nian Yan, who was born dozens of minutes later, was very quiet. She rarely cried. Even if she wanted to drink milk or change her diaper, she would only moan a few times. When she moaned, her face was red, as if she was holding her breath. It looked very heartbreaking. Because of this, Hua Jinyao's heart ached even more for Nian Yin. He wished he could hold his daughter in his arms all the time. Every day, other than taking care of Su Qingsang, he spent the most time with the two children. When Xiang Yin was washing the third day with Nian Yin, the Hua family came. Afraid that he would startle the two children, Hua Jinyao only carried the twins for everyone to see, then carried them back to their room. He was very protective now, so he was even easier to wake up than Su Qingsang. The baby's room was arranged next to their room, and there was also a nanny and Annie to take care of the children. However, every time the child moaned, Hua Jinyao would wake up immediately. He had to work during the day and take care of the children at night. He was also responsible for accompanying Su Qingsang and slowly recovering with her. A few days later, Su Qingsang had recovered a lot, and she looked a little more plump. However, Hua Jinyao had lost weight. Seeing this, Li Qianxue was a little more satisfied with his son-in-law. There was no harm without comparison. Looking at what Hua Jinyao had done and thinking about what Su Changhui had done, she could tell that Hua Jinyao truly loved Su Qingsang and treated her and her son well. She had nothing to worry about. She didn't tell Su Changhui about the baby. If he wanted to know, he would naturally find out. Li Qianxue didn't think it was necessary to inform him. She would rather not see Su Changhui. She didn't mention Su Changhui, and neither did Su Qingsang. The mother and daughter often stayed together during the day. Li Qianxue was afraid that Su Qingsang would be bored during her confinement, so she always talked to her and took care of her. Just like Hua Jinyao took care of the two children, Li Qianxue would rather take care of Su Qingsang herself. She often blamed herself for not doing enough in the past, and wished that she could treat Su Qingsang better. After more than 10 days, the relationship between the two had improved a lot. Lu Tongjia had also taken this opportunity to improve her relationship with Hua Jinyao. There were 2 more children in the family. There were many topics that the elders could talk about. For example, today, Nian Nian drank more milk. Thinking about it, she cried a few more times. Because of the existence of the 2 children, the Hua family suddenly had countless more vitality. That day, Hua Jinyao returned home with a bag. During this period of time, there were enough gifts. Whether it was Li Qianxue or Lu Tongjia, no one was surprised. When the things were carried upstairs, no one opened them. It wasn't until nighttime that everyone else had gone back to their rooms to sleep. The child was also carried to the baby's room to rest. Hua Jinyao carried the bag and sat down by the bed. What? So mysterious? Hua Jinyao said that Su Qingsang had a hard time giving birth, and he would bring her some surprises from time to time. However, this was the first time he had been so mysterious. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything. He just took out the things inside. There were 2 sweaters and 2 onesies. There were also 2 small vests, both made of wool. They weren't thick and were suitable for babies to wear. It could be seen that they were made of high-quality wool. The fine stitches were especially soft. It was very comfortable to touch. There was no need for Hua Jinyao to explain in detail. Su Qingsang knew who prepared this. Auntie is here? She came to look for you? Strictly speaking, she didn't come to look for me. She came to look for Yang Wenchang. Tianya Group couldn't enter without an appointment. Xiang Kaiping didn't intend to disturb Hua Jinyao and let people know that she had a relationship with Hua Jinyao. She went to Tianya Group, found Yang Wenchang, and gave him this. Yang Wenchang had helped Hua Jinyao deal with many things in the past, so he naturally knew Xiang Kaiping. She said that she speculated that the 2 children should be about to be born during this period of time. It wasn't convenient for her to visit, but she had to prepare the gifts first. When Yang Wenchang told her that the children had been born, she was very happy. She was even happier when she heard that they had given birth to a pair of twins. She handed the gifts to Yang Wenchang and asked him to pass them to Hua Jinyao. That's great. That's great. Qingsang is a lucky man. Please tell Jinyao not to tell Qingsang that it was me who prepared it. She said that, but Hua Jinyao could not tell her. Moreover, with Su Qingsang's intelligence, it was impossible for her not to guess. Su Qing-sang stroked the two sweaters, picked them up, and gently smelled them. She thought of something and suddenly smiled. Put them away. When my mother returns to Lin City, I'll take them out for the children to wear. Besides, it's too big now. I can't wear it. Okay. Hua Jinyao nodded and got up to pick up the sweaters inside. And this, a pair of longevity locks. In Lin City, there was such a custom. If a grandmother became a grandmother, she had to prepare a longevity lock for her children. Li Qinxue had already bought one before, and it was more exquisite than this. However, this one was also Xiang Tsiping's intention. Su Qing-sang's eyes were a little sore. She blinked her eyes, suppressed her emotions, and looked at Hua Jinyao. Put them away. When they grow up, leave them to the children. The twins were children of the Hua family, so they naturally didn't lack such things. But this was a kind intention. Chapter 646. Jinyao. Yes. I suddenly feel so happy. Yes. Hua Jinyao hugged her and smelled the faint milky fragrance on her body. Ever since she gave birth, her body was full of motherly radiance. I feel very happy too. Su Qing-sang pressed her face against Hua Jinyao's chest. A long time ago, she had always thought that she was a pitiful little girl, an illegitimate daughter. No one doted on or loved her. Therefore, she could only love herself. Now, she suddenly felt that maybe she had been wronged in the past 20 years, so she was twice as happy in the future. Right? Su Qing-sang thought of what she could do for Xiang Kaiping. If Su Peizhen can change after she gets out, let's not care about her anymore. She knew what Xiang Kaiping cared about the most, and the only thing she could give her was not to destroy what she cared about the most. Of course, the premise was that Su Peizhen lived up to her expectations and didn't mess around anymore. I promise you, Hua Jinyao could guarantee this. As long as Su Peizhen didn't court disaster, he believed that she could continue her life after she got out. Moreover, with Su Peizhen's ability, she could live a good life. That was if she was willing. Speaking of which, she hadn't paid attention to Su Peizhen for a long time. How is she recently? Not bad. Hua Jinyao really asked Yang Wenchang to ask about her today because of Xiang Kaiping. She should be able to get a reduction in her sentence. It's been reduced by half a year now. Really? That was great. It meant that Su Peizhen was really repentant now. Yes, I heard that she's teaching people in prison. A month before the new year, the prison organized a performance party. She was the leader. I heard that the response to several performances was good. The higher-ups are very satisfied with the current performance of their prison. It could be said that she made a contribution and got a reduction of half a year. If she is willing to continue like this, I think she can get out in less than 3 years. Regardless of whether her purpose was to reduce her sentence or not, with her pride, it was already progress that she was willing to do these things. That's great. Su Qing-sang thought of Xiang Kaiping. This way, Annie can live a better life. Hua Jinyao didn't comment. Even if Su Peizhen came out and stopped doing bad things, it was still unknown whether she could accept Xiang Kaiping. All right, you're still in confinement. You don't have to worry about other people's business. Sleep. I'm just saying it casually. I'm not tired now. I'll let you guys do all the work. I have nothing to do at all. At home, there were 2 Annies and 2 nannies who specialized in taking care of the children. Apart from breastfeeding, most of the time, she could not interfere. As for carrying a child, it was even more difficult. If it weren't for the fact that the 2 children were basically sleeping a lot now, the elders at home would be fighting to hug them. Old Master Hua was the happiest one. Recently, he was in high spirits because of happy events. He was grinning from ear to ear. It wasn't that there weren't people of his age who had lived to his age, but there weren't many with 4 generations living under the same roof. There were 4 generations living under the same roof, but there was no family that had twins, and they were a boy and a girl. How could Old Master Hua not be proud? He felt as if the wind was blowing when he walked. Not only was Old Master Hua happy, but Hui Yangyuan and Hui Yangshou also liked to visit the children when they were free. After a few days, the facial features of the 2 little fellows had also slowly grown. With Hua Jinyao and Su Qing-sang's good looks, the 2 babies looked like they were carved from jade and looked extremely cute. They looked like Hua Jinyao, but Su Qingsang's outline could be seen. Nian Yin looked more like Su Qingsang. However, Hua Jinyao's shadow could still be seen in her eyes. Speaking of which, the two little guys looked very similar. Looking at the two little babies every day, Su Qingsang felt satisfied with everything. The pain during childbirth and the lingering fear of almost falling asleep and not waking up became insignificant at this moment. After the first month, it would be the little baby's full moon. It was still very cold in Rong City, and Su Qingsang had just finished her confinement. She didn't want to celebrate too much, so she told Old Master Hua that she just wanted to treat her family to a meal to celebrate. How could Old Master Hua be willing? Su Qingsang tried to persuade him again and again, but she only said that the two children were still young. There was no need to be too ostentatious. Hua Jinyao knew what Su Qingsang meant. The children were still young, and it was cold outside. If they wanted to hold a big party, they would have to bring the two children out to meet people. Su Qingsang felt sorry for the children and was unwilling. With Hua Jinyao's help to persuade her, and Lu Tongjia also felt that they were still young. Old Master Hua could only take a step back. It was fine if they didn't have a banquet for the small full moon, but they had to hold a big one for the big full moon. Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang didn't have a wedding in Rong City. Old Master Hua also wanted to take this opportunity to give Su Qingsang. This time, Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao couldn't go against Old Master Hua's wishes anymore. They could only agree. 3 months later, the weather in Rong City would also be warm. It would be appropriate to take the children out. Li Qianxue stayed in Rong City for more than half a month. She still had things to do, so she returned to Lin City after the Lantern Festival. Before she left, she was especially reluctant to part with Nian Yin. After returning to Lin City, she would talk to Su Qingsang at least 3 times a day. Every day before going to bed, she would look at her grandchildren before going to bed. As Nian Yin grew up, her facial features combined the advantages of Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang. Unexpectedly, the more they looked, the more similar they became. Although they looked alike, their personalities were completely different. As Nian Yin grew up, his voice became louder and louder. He often roared when he was unhappy, and his cries could even be heard downstairs. Nian Yin was different. She rarely cried. Sometimes, when she saw Nian Yin crying, she would blink at him as if she didn't quite understand what he was crying about. At this time, something very interesting would happen. When Nian Yin didn't cry and only stared at him, he wouldn't cry anymore. Su Qingsang's greatest pleasure now was to observe the two children. She didn't know that children were really different every day after becoming a mother. She thought that Nian Yin's hair grew faster, but it was always darker. But what about Nian Yin? Her hair was thin. When she was born, it was a little yellow, but it slowly became darker. If she drank milk, Nian Yin would often drink all of Su Qingsang's milk. When Nian Yin wanted to drink it, it was gone. At this time, she would feel especially wronged, but she wouldn't cry. She would just look at him like that. Su Qingsang's heart melted. Next time, she would feed Nian Yin first. But after thinking about it, she didn't want to. When he made a fuss, it would be very loud. Sometimes, Su Qingsang would wonder who this child looked like. Why was he so good at making a fuss? She heard from Lu Tongjia that Hua Jinyao was quite sensible when he was young. He was obedient and easy to take care of. He didn't even need to wake up at night. How did he turn into a little devil in Xiang Xiang? Su Qingsang had no choice but to gulp down the milk soup. She was afraid that 2 babies wouldn't be enough. Even so, Nian Yin still drank milk powder. When the little guy held the milk bottle in his mouth, he looked extremely pitiful. At first, he refused to drink the milk from the bottle, no matter what. Later, he was so hungry that he barely drank 2 mouthfuls. After trying a few more times, he knew that he wouldn't be able to drink his mother's milk. In the end, he finally accepted the fact that he could only get the milk bottle. His resistance was a little less. Every time this happened, Su Qingsang felt both amused and helpless. There was nothing she could do. Nian Yin's physique was a little weaker than Nian Yin's. She really couldn't blame him for being biased. Even Hua Jinyao had the same thought. Boys have to be raised a little rougher. Isn't it just that he doesn't have milk to drink? He has such a bad temper. When he grows up, see how I'll deal with him." Although that was what he said, every time the child cried, he couldn't wait to immediately pick him up and coax him. Su Qing couldn't be bothered to expose his tough words and soft heart. Anyway, the child was his. When the time came, he would really deal with him ruthlessly. Time slowly passed by more than 2 months. Soon, it was the 100th day of the two little guys' lives. Because old Master Hua said that they wanted to hold a big party, the Hua family had 100 tables in the largest hotel in Rome City. They invited all the people who were friends with the Hua family, their business partners, and their distant and close relatives. Xiang and Yin, who were already 100 days old, now looked like two little dolls in a New Year's painting. They were pink and tender, and especially likable. It wasn't the first time Xiang had gone out. He had gone out for a vaccination and a checkup at the hospital. However, it was the first time he had seen so many people. He wasn't afraid of strangers at all. He just rolled his eyes and looked around. If anyone reached out to hug him, he was willing to let them hug him. He smiled at whoever hugged him. Yin wasn't afraid of strangers, but she didn't seem to like to interact with others. She was only willing to let her family hug her and didn't want anyone else. Finally, when she saw Hua Jinyao in a suit and tie, she immediately turned her head and kept looking at him. Yin liked Hua Jinyao very much. As long as Hua Jinyao hugged her, she would obediently stay in her father's arms. Seeing that there were so many people, no matter who came, she didn't want to bother with them. She just buried her face in Hua Jinyao's arms. The others were fine, but Hua Jinyao's group of childhood friends had all come. Wan Xianying loved to play, and Tang Mohan was also very lively. The group of people looked at the two little babies with envy and jealousy. Xiang was fine. He was willing to be hugged by anyone. Yin couldn't do it. She refused to let anyone hug her. She would change her face the moment someone hugged her. Hua Jinyao couldn't bear to let them hug her either. The rules were that they could only look at her and not hug her. This little girl has such a bad temper. Wan Xianying clicked his tongue, but his eyes were filled with envy. Jinyao, I think your daughter is so cold and aloof. I don't know which kid will be able to catch up to her in the future. Tang Mohan looked at Hua Jinyao's two treasures with envy. To be honest, among these childhood friends, Hua Jinyao was the luckiest one. He went to open a branch office somewhere else, and he came back with a wife. It wasn't a big deal to marry a wife. The key was that his wife wasn't an ordinary person. Look at how she gave birth to 2 children in one go. She had both a son and a daughter. What nonsense are you talking about? Hua Jinyao now treated his daughter like a pearl. When he heard Tang Mohan's words, he was unhappy. What kid? I'll destroy whoever dares to have any ideas about my daughter. Nonsense again. Su Qing couldn't stand it anymore. Will you be happy if no one wants your daughter when she grows up? How can no one want my daughter? Hua Jinyao retorted. I'm just saying that I won't let them have any ideas about my daughter. Yes. You can raise her at home for the rest of her life. I'll raise her for the rest of her life. It's not like I can't afford to raise her. Su Qing face-palmed. She had begun to understand Hua Jinyao's daughter complex over the past few days. Jinyao, don't be so stubborn. Li Junsheng teased. Maybe if your daughter doesn't get married a few years later, you'll still rush her. Absolutely not. Hua Jinyao couldn't bear to part with her. I can't bear to hand my daughter over to those brats. Su Qing laughed and didn't want to talk to this person. How old was Yin now? Why was he thinking so far ahead? Sure enough, when Li Junsheng and the others heard Hua Jinyao's words, their eyes were filled with ridicule. Wan Xianying stepped forward and patted Hua Jinyao on the shoulder. I regret not getting married earlier. Otherwise, I would have had a son. When I grow up, I'll chase after your daughter. Don't be in a hurry. It's not too late for you to have a child now. Cheng Xianyun watched the show and didn't mind the matter getting bigger. Hurry up and work hard. Xianying isn't the only one who can work hard. I can say that about me too. Tang Mohan joined in the fun. I'll hurry up and get married. When the time comes, we'll get married when we're kids. Get lost. Hua Jinyao didn't continue the conversation. All of you, stay away from my daughter. The group of people laughed. It could be seen now. In the future, Hua Hua Jinyao would definitely be a daughter lover. He wouldn't be able to run away from being a protective maniac. The banquet began, and Old Master Hua went on stage to speak. He was very happy today. At this age, he had everything. He liked to see the family prosper. Today, I'm sure everyone knows why I've invited all of you here. I'm not talented, but I'm indebted to everyone for taking care of me in Rome City all these years. Thank you for coming. He was being polite, but no one really thought that he had anything to take care of the Hua family. Everyone knows that this burden has to be passed down from generation to generation. What is passed down? It's people. Here, I want to thank my granddaughter-in-law first. Thank her for bringing such a cute pair of twins to our Hua family. Thank her for going through so much hardship so that I could be promoted to be your great-granddaughter. I once said that my grandson, Hua Jinyao, as a man, the most insightful thing in his life is to marry a good wife. At this moment, there was laughter below the stage. Old Master Hua waved his hand and continued, "My granddaughter-in-law, Su Qing-sang, is not only a good partner of Hua Jinyao, but also a good daughter-in-law of the Hua family. Now, the Hua family has a pair of twins. As an old man, I don't have much to give. I'll give my granddaughter-in-law 2% of the shares of the Tianyu Group under my name." How much was the market value of the Tianyu Group? 2% of the shares was quite shocking. With these shares, Su Qing-sang could enter the board of directors in the future. All the guests present immediately looked at Su Qing-sang, who was holding the child. She didn't expect such a thing to happen, so she couldn't help but glance at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao's reaction was to pinch her palm, indicating for her to calm down. "No, why would I want the shares?" Su Qing-sang said in a low voice. Hua Jinyao smiled at her. "Grandpa gave it to you, so just take it. Don't worry. If you feel that it's too hot, you can give it to the two children in the future." While they were talking, Old Master Hua had already told them about the gifts for the twins. There were 2 properties under his name, plus 2 funds worth more than 10 million yuan. "Jinyao, isn't Grandpa giving too much?" They were still 2 children. They didn't know anything and didn't know anything. So what if he gave it away? Don't think too much about it. Since these things are from Grandpa, just take them. But Su Qing-sang wasn't timid. She looked around. Almost all the relatives of the Hua family were here today. To be honest, she really wasn't used to Old Master Hua being so high profile. It wasn't just Old Master Hua. Hua Mingguang and Lu Tongjia both expressed their feelings after the birth of their children. The 2 little guys were still so young, but their assets were already quite astonishing. Most importantly, Old Master Hua gave these things to Xiang Xiang and Yin Yin. Hua Jinyao didn't only have one brother. He was the only one. But what about Hua Mingliang and Hua Mingmei? There were other people there. Although they weren't married yet, they would get married sooner or later, and they would have children sooner or later. Old Master Hua was so high profile that other people would probably be jealous if they saw it. Silly, Hua Jinyao leaned over. "You're worth it, and so are the children." Su Qing-sang knew that she couldn't change Old Master Hua's mind. She looked at Hua Mingguang's family at the other table. Hua Yifan was still in prison, and Hua Yiyang and Hua Manzi were sitting with their parents. Of course, they couldn't cause any trouble on such an occasion. However, their expressions couldn't be considered happy. "Ignore them." As if he knew what she was thinking, Hua Jinyao held her hand tightly. "Don't worry. Believe me, I have the ability to protect you, and I also have the ability to protect the 2 little babies." Okay, Su Qing-sang wasn't too worried. She just felt that it wasn't good to be so high profile. However, since the truth was already like this, she could only accept it. Actually, you really don't have to be too nervous. Every child of the Hua family will be born with a corresponding property under their name. In the future, if Hua Yifan and the others have another child, they will definitely have the same. Really? Of course it's true. Hua Jinyao nodded. However, it was impossible for it to be as grand as Xiang Xiang and Yin Yin, even if Old Master Hua would be said to be biased. However, there were some things and people that he really favored Hua Jinyao more. This was something that others couldn't be jealous of. The full moon banquet was very lively. Xiang Xiang refused to sleep until he was too tired. He fell asleep in the auntie's arms. It didn't take long for Nian Nian to fall into a deep sleep. When she got home, the two little ones woke up together. When they woke up, they started to make a fuss, wanting their mother. Su Qing-sang had been tired all day, but she had no choice but to cheer up and feed the two little ones. It wasn't easy for her to coax the two little ones to sleep again. She could finally rest. However, before Su Qing-sang could walk to the door and return to her room, Nian Nian cried again. It was different from the previous soft moans. Nian Nian cried a little loudly this time. Su Qing-sang went forward to take a look and found that her daughter didn't look too good either. Nian Nian? Chapter 647. In the past few months, although Nian Nian didn't eat as much as she thought, her body had always been healthy. Su Qing-sang told herself not to be anxious. It might just be the child's normal crying. Nian Nian had always been obedient and never made people worry. Now, she was crying so hard that her face was red. The auntie and the nanny were both there. They went forward to take a look. Could she be feeling unwell, or did she get a stomachache? That's impossible. It's all milk. What if she gets sick from eating? Could it be that he's shocked? Why are there so many people today? It's possible. In our hometown, we usually don't carry children out easily because we're afraid of being shocked. Hearing the auntie's words, Su Qing-sang became more and more anxious. Stop talking. Let me check first. She gave Nian Nian a basic checkup. She was a doctor, so she had all the medicine boxes at home. She took Nian Nian's temperature and found that she was fine. She then checked her respiratory tract and other things. At the same time, she changed her diaper and fed her milk. However, the child was still crying. While Su Qing-sang was in a mess, Hu Jinyao arrived. What's wrong? Why aren't you sleeping? When Nian Nian saw Hu Jinyao, she cried even harder. Seeing this, Hu Jinyao quickly reached out and carried the child over. What's wrong, Nian Nian? Why are you crying? The moment he carried Nian Nian in his arms, she immediately stopped crying. Her little face pressed against her father, and she sniffed. With her head tilted, the exhausted little girl fell asleep, just like that. So you've been making a fuss all this time, just for you to come? Su Qing-sang had always known that her daughter was clingy to Hu Jinyao, but she didn't expect it to be to this extent. Every night before going to bed, Hu Jinyao would come to see his son and daughter, especially to hug his daughter. Nian Nian stopped crying when she was in Hu Jinyao's arms. She looked at Hu Jinyao as if she had been wronged. Hu Jinyao hugged Nian Nian and gently patted her back, coaxing her to sleep in a low voice. Su Qing-sang stood not far away and watched this scene. Even though she had seen this scene many times in the past 3 months, it still didn't stop Su Qing-sang from feeling warmth in her heart. Hu Jinyao was really a good father. In fact, he didn't need to coax her for too long. Before long, she fell asleep in Hu Jinyao's arms. Hu Jinyao waited until his daughter fell asleep before he gently placed her on the small bed. Hu Jinyao told the housekeeper and the maid to be careful, then held Su Qing-sang's hand and went back to the room. Not bad, Mr. Hua. As soon as they entered the room, Su Qing-sang was not stingy with her compliments. You're becoming more and more like a stay-at-home dad. Thank you for the compliment. Su Qing-sang shook her head with a smile and thought of something else. Speaking of which, your daughter is really clingy to you. It was just that he didn't go to see his daughter before going to bed like before. How could she cry like that? Jealous? Hu Jinyao put his arms around her waist and teased her. Yeah, I'm jealous. How could Su Qing-sang not be jealous? I tried to coax my daughter for a long time, but I still couldn't coax her. You made her obedient as soon as you took action. I gave birth to this daughter. Of course I'm jealous. Su Qing-sang was exaggerating. In fact, during this period of time, Nian Nian had gotten used to being hugged and coaxed by her father for a while before she fell asleep. Hu Jinyao picked Su Qing-sang up and made her look at him. Okay, then I'll start coaxing you now, okay? Okay. Su Qing-sang nodded and raised her head to look at Hu Jinyao. How are you going to coax me? Like this. As he spoke, he kissed Su Qing-sang's lips. Su Qing-sang hooked her arms around his neck and took the initiative to kiss his lips. However, when Hu Jinyao's hand moved down, she grabbed his hand and left his arms. She stepped back a little. Okay, I'll go take a shower. After a tiring day, she was covered in sweat. "It's okay. Let's shower together." He reached out to hug her again. Su Qing-sang glared at him, then quickly left his arms like a loach. After entering the bathroom, Su Qing-sang looked at herself in the mirror with mixed emotions. In the past 3 months, because of giving birth, she had gained a lot of weight before giving birth. Although her figure had recovered a little after giving birth, she looked even more voluptuous than when she hadn't been pregnant. When she took a shower, she stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself. Su Qing-sang pinched the small circle on her lower abdomen that hadn't been completely eliminated in time. She looked a little depressed. "What's wrong?" Hua Jinyao, who had just entered the door, saw Su Qing-sang looking at herself in the mirror. The expression on her face definitely couldn't be considered happy. "Hua Jinyao." Su Qing-sang wasn't usually such a lack of confidence. Logically speaking, she had given birth naturally and could recover very well. However, she was pregnant with twins after all, so it would take a little longer than ordinary people. "Look at me, I've gained so much weight." He didn't know if he could recover. If he continued to be like this, he would really look ugly. "How did you gain weight?" Hua Jinyao placed his hand on her abdomen. Indeed, there was a small circle of flesh. "I think this is just right. My hand feels much better." "Hua Jinyao, I'm serious." "I'm serious too." Hua Jinyao's hand moved up rather naughtily. He looked at Su Qing-sang's face in the mirror and kissed the back of her neck. "Especially the hand here. It doesn't feel too good, you wife." In the past few months, he had been understanding that she had just given birth, and it was hard for her to take care of the baby every day. He had been a vegetarian for a long time. "No matter what, don't even think about escaping today. I'm already like this." Su Qing-sang looked at the flesh on her abdomen that hadn't completely disappeared. She was really depressed. She could have recovered better, but during this period of time, in order to let the baby have enough milk, she hadn't stopped feeding the milk soup. She ate a lot, so it would be strange if she wasn't fat. She even despised herself for being like this. Hua Jinyao looked at her, turned her body around, and looked at her very seriously. "Wife, in my heart, you're the most beautiful." What's more, Hua Jinyao stroked her abdomen and looked at her figure, which was indeed much fuller than before. "You became like this because of me. Do you think I would despise you?" Su Qing-sang didn't say anything. No woman could really not care about her appearance, but Hua Jinyao's words undoubtedly made her extremely happy. "Hua Jinyao, are you serious?" "Wife, I will definitely try my best to prove it to you today." He stood up, easily picked her up, and walked to the bathtub. "You're even more attractive to me than before you had a child." The annual Christmas was here again. Today was a little special. It was Su Qing-sang's 3rd birthday after her marriage to Hua Jinyao, and it was also her 2nd birthday. After all, her birthday was written as the 26th. Last year, Hua Jinyao had planned to celebrate Su Qing-sang's birthday, but Su Qing-sang was pregnant and couldn't move freely. He wanted to take her out to play, but he couldn't. This year, there was a chance. Hua Jinyao helped Su Qing-sang apply for leave in advance. Then, he handed the 2 children to Liu Tongjia and Hua Mingguang. The winter in Rong City was getting colder, but Hua Jinyao was very excited. He brought Su Qing-sang to the airport early in the morning. "Where are we going?" On the way to the airport, Su Qing-sang was still a little hesitant. "How many days are you going to take me?" Xiang and Nian. Before she became a mother, she really didn't think she would have such a mentality. But ever since she became a mother, as long as she was away for a little longer, she would start to miss her 2 children. Every day when she went to work, she would hug her 2 babies for a long time before leaving. It was even more so when she came back at night. Under such circumstances, Su Qing-sang really couldn't bear to part with Xiang and Nian. "Wife." Hua Jinyao held her hand tightly. "I know you can't bear to part with your 2 children, and I can't bear to part with them either, but we need some private time." No matter how reluctant he was, he didn't want to let Su Qing-sang suffer. His son was very important to him, and his daughter was also very important to him. But Su Qing-sang was more important. But no buts. If I can bear to let go of Nian for a few days, you should also learn to let go and miss Nian for a few days. Su Qing-sang's lips moved, but in the end, she could only listen to Hu Jinyao. When they arrived at the airport, they didn't go to the waiting room. Instead, they took the VIP passage and went straight to the boarding gate. Hu Jinyao wasn't in a hurry to get on the plane. Instead, he held Su Qing-sang's hand through the huge glass wall. Actually, the gift I want to give you is here. So, I want to bring you to take a look. What? What gift would be at the airport? Look carefully. Hu Jinyao pointed outside, and Su Qing-sang followed his finger. There was a plane parked there. There were cyan cloud patterns on the white fuselage. Following the long cloud patterns, she saw 3 very eye-catching words on it. Qing-sang, it's for you. Hu Jinyao hugged her waist and pressed his chin against her neck. Do you like it? Su Qing-sang blinked. Even though she had received many gifts over the years, she had never thought that she would receive a plane one day. You, Hu Jinyao, aren't you exaggerating? I'm not exaggerating. Hu Jinyao didn't think he was exaggerating. Wife, with this plane, next time, you can fly wherever you want. For example, if you want to go to Lin City to see your mother, you just need to call Wen Chong and ask him to arrange it. You can go back to see your mother at any time. That was too exaggerated. Su Qing-sang turned to look at him. She was in a state of complete shock. Let's go. Where to? Didn't I say to go to Lin City to see your mother? Hu Jinyao told her his plan. We'll go to see your mother first and stay in Lin City for a few days. Then we can fly to the Maldives or the Aegean Sea. You see, we'll go wherever you want to go. By the way, I bought 2 small islands in the Pacific Ocean. Why don't I take you to see them? Stop. Su Qing-sang interrupted him. How many days do you plan to take me away? It doesn't matter how many days. Believe me, Mom and Dad will definitely take good care of the 2 little babies. So, you really don't have to worry too much. Su Qing-sang wasn't worried, but she couldn't bear to part with them. Ever since the 2 children were born, they had never been separated from her for a day. Besides, don't you miss your mother? Yes. Li Qianxue often flew to Rome City to see the 2 babies when she was free. Not only would she come, but Su Chenghui would also come. But coincidentally, Li Qianxue and Su Chenghui seemed to have a tacit understanding. Except for the time when the children were born and when they were 1 month old, the 2 of them almost didn't meet. Every time Li Qianxue was about to leave, Su Chenghui would come. Sometimes, when Su Chenghui was about to leave, Li Qianxue would come. The reason for this was, of course, because Li Qianxue didn't want to meet Su Chenghui, so she would ask clearly every time. After spending more time together, their relationship naturally became closer. Speaking of which, the last time Li Qianxue came to Rome City was more than a month ago. Su Qing-sang really missed her a little. And Mingwan, you said you wanted to see her last time. Did you forget? Yes, I didn't forget. Then let's go. Go spend time with your mother, and then spend time with your grandfather. See Mingwan and your former colleagues. Then, we'll find another place to fly to and play. Su Qing-sang couldn't argue with him. She also knew that in the past year, from her pregnancy to childbirth to the birth of the child, she really hadn't had a good time to relax. Now that she was doing this, she could just treat it as a vacation. Speaking of which, this was her first time taking a private plane. It was indeed as comfortable as she had seen on TV. There was not only a living room, a meeting room, a study, and 2 bedrooms on the plane. Su Qing-sang sat on the sofa and looked at the wings outside. There were also 3 words on it. Qing-sang. This was her plane, a gift from Hu Jinyao. It was a wonderful feeling. She had never thought that she would one day have a plane. Hu Jinyao. Thank you. Honey, you never have to say thank you to me. Hu Jinyao held her hand and said very seriously, I want to thank you. Thank her for appearing in his life. Thank her for bringing him a different life. Thank her for loving him. Thank her for fulfilling his life. Hu Jinyao. The moment the plane soared into the sky, Su Qing-sang hugged Hu Jinyao's waist. I love you. Honey, I love you too. The Qing-sang plane took the 2 of them to another city. It also witnessed the love between the 2 of them. Su Qing-sang believed that they would definitely work hard and live a good life. Outer world, Samsara, 3 years later. Hui Yinjin climbed up the cabinet and rummaged around. She didn't find what she was looking for. so she pouted and climbed down from the cabinet. However, her movements were too big. When she got down from the chair, she lost her footing. She was about to fall to the ground. A pair of small hands quickly held her back and steadied her. Hui Yinjin turned around. When she saw Hui Yinjing, she smiled widely and jumped down from the small chair. Brother. Hui Yinjing hugged his little sister, who was about the same height as him, and put her down. What are you looking for? Hui Yinjin pouted again when she heard that. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. You're looking for this, aren't you? Hui Yinjing stretched out his hand, and there were 2 milk candies in his little hand. Wow, brother, how did you find it? Little idiot. Hui Yinjing opened one of the milk candies and put it into his little sister's mouth. I saw it when Mommy hid the candy. Brother, you're so smart. Why didn't I see it? Stupid. Who told you to take a nap? You're the stupid one, Hui Yinjin replied, but she wasn't angry. The candy was so sweet. She opened the other candy in Hui Yinjing's hand and stuffed it into his mouth when Hui Yinjing wasn't prepared. Don't you want it? He knew that his little sister loved candy the most. One for you, one for me. As Hui Yinjing spoke, she looked around and finally made a shushing gesture at Hui Yinjing. We promised Mommy that we wouldn't eat candy. If we only eat one a day now, Mommy won't find out, right? Hui Yinjin said that, but when she finished eating the candy, her eyes began to blink again. Brother, I still want to eat. What should I do? You just said that you would only eat one. Then one more? Just one? Hui Yinjing looked at his sister's little face and helplessly took out another candy from his pocket. Here. Thank you, brother. Brother is the best. Cough. The sudden cough startled Hui Yinjin, and she almost dropped the candy in her hand. She and Hui Yinjing turned around at the same time and found that Hui Jinyao had arrived. Daddy, Daddy. The 2 little guys threw themselves into Hui Jinyao's arms. He stretched out his arms, one on the left and the other on the right, and picked up the 2 children. Tell Daddy, what were you doing just now? I didn't do anything bad. Hui Yinjin shook her head quickly. I was playing with my brother. I didn't do anything bad. You didn't do anything bad? Hui Jinyao blinked at his daughter. As she gradually grew up, her features resembled his, but there were still some differences. No. Then what is this? Hui Jinyao looked at his daughter's hand, which was still tightly holding a candy. However, her hand was too small. Even if she held it tightly, she couldn't wrap it completely. Candy. Hui Yinjin lowered her head, but soon raised it again to look at Hui Jinyao. Daddy, I only ate one, really. Hui Yinjin raised 3 fingers as if to make a promise. When she saw Hui Jinyao's serious face, she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. Daddy, I promise I won't eat it, okay? Don't tell Mommy. Okay. Before Hui Jinyao could say anything, Hui Yinjing spoke first. Daddy, I found the candy. I gave it to my sister. If you want to punish me, punish me. But can you not tell Mommy? The 2 little guys blinked their eyes at Hui Jinyao. He listened to their childish words and hugged their little bodies tightly. His eyes were a little hot. The familiar scene was happening again after more than 20 years. He buried his face in Hui Yinjin's neck and didn't say anything. Hui Yinjin was a little nervous. She glanced at her brother and then at Hui Jinyao. Finally, she said as if she was throwing away everything. Then if you want to tell Mommy, can you ask Mommy not to punish me? I promise I won't eat candy again, okay? Hui Jinyao shook his head and put down the 2 little guys. When he shook his head, Hui Yinjin's face fell. Daddy, I told you I gave the candy to my sister. If you want to punish me, punish me. Hui Yinjing was quite manly. Hui Jinyao glanced at him and reached out to rub his head. Why would I? Don't worry. Mommy won't punish you. In this family, Su Qingseng definitely had a high status. She indeed didn't allow the children to eat too much candy, especially Hui Yinjin. The little ball from back then had now grown into a cute little girl that could melt a person's heart. She had a tooth decay, which was caused by her fondness for candy. Ever since Su Qingseng found out, she didn't allow her to eat candy anymore. However, Hui Yinjin just couldn't resist the charm of candy. Lu Tongjia, who was used to spoiling her children, would secretly put a few in the house from time to time. It looked like she was hiding it well, but in fact, the 2 children would always find it. Hui Yinjing, in particular, seemed to always be able to see where the adults hid the candy. Really, Hui Yinjin wasn't sure. She blinked her black, grape-like eyes at Hui Jinyao. Hui Jinyao was in a daze for a moment. At that moment, he seemed to see Hui Wushuang's shadow. However, he knew that Hui Wushuang was Hui Wushuang, and Hui Yinjin was Hui Yinjin. He wouldn't confuse the two of them, but at that moment, he really felt that the gap in his heart that he had always thought had never disappeared was quietly being filled. His beloved little daughter had healed the wound in his heart in such a reincarnated way. She was his angel. He hugged his daughter tightly and stood up. Hui Jinyao looked at her. Nian Yin, but you have to promise me that you won't eat candy again until your tooth decay is cured, okay? Okay. If you promise me, I'll ask your mother to allow you to eat one a day in the future. How about that? Really? Hui Yinjin blinked her eyes in surprise. Then, will Mom agree? Yes. Really? Don't you believe in Dad? I do. Dad is the best. Hui Yinjin kissed Hui Jinyao's cheek again. Hui Jinyao smiled. He held his daughter and held his son's hand. In order to thank Nian Yin for her trust in Dad, Dad will take you out to play today. That's great. Hui Yinjin clapped her little hands. Then, brother wants to go too. Of course. Let's go. Hui Jinyao walked out with the two children. But we have to pick up Mom first. Let's go. We're going to pick up Mom. Hui Yinjin and Hui Yinjin got into Hui Jinyao's car together. The car stopped at the entrance of the hospital where Su Qingsang worked. Su Qingsang was on the night shift yesterday and only got off work this morning. When she came out of the hospital, she saw 3 figures, 1 big and 2 small, standing at the entrance of the hospital waiting for her. Su Qingsang smiled and quickened her steps towards the 3 people she loved the most. Nian Yin, think about it. Do you miss Mom? Yes. Yes. Did you guys behave when Mom was on duty last night? Yes. Yes. Really? Mom, I secretly ate a candy, but I promise, I only ate one, really only one. Mom, I gave it to my sister. Don't blame her. Why are you guys so disobedient? You actually secretly ate candy? Su Qingsang looked at the 2 little guys with a straight face. To punish you, huh? To punish you. You guys can sleep on your own today. Chapter 648. Shi Mingwan looked at the little baby in Su Qingsang's arms. There was a flash of envy and love in her eyes. Today was Su Qingsang's baby's 1-month birthday party. She had come once when Su Qingsang gave birth. This was her 2nd time coming to Rong City. So cute. This is the sister, right? Yes. This is Nian Yin, the sister. Has the name been decided? Yes. Her name is Hui Yinjin. Su Qingsang held her daughter, her face full of satisfaction. The older one is Hui Yinjing. Good name. Shi Mingwan nodded, and her gaze fell on the pink baby's face. The most important thing is that she's really cute. She's so cute that I want to steal her home. Do you like it? Su Qingsang blinked at her. If you like it, hurry up and find a man and have one. Humph. I think you're right. Wan Xianying had arrived at some point. At this moment, he stood beside Shi Mingwan and looked at her with a hint of eagerness in his eyes. Sister-in-law, Wan. Shi Mingwan nodded at Wan Xianying as a greeting and quickly stood up. Qingsang, I'm going to the bathroom. Go ahead. She was obviously avoiding Wan Xianying, which made Wan Xianying's expression turn ugly. After Shi Mingwan left, he looked at Su Qingsang. Sister-in-law, I'm not that bad, am I? Su Qingsang couldn't answer. Everyone had their own eyes. Wan Xianying was good, but Shi Mingwan didn't like him, so there was nothing she could do. Xianying, listen to my advice. You'd better find another target. Wan Xianying didn't give up and said it casually. In fact, he had long given up. Hearing Su Qingsang say this, he wasn't angry. Okay, I want to see who subdued this flower in the end. Shi Mingwan actually knew that Wan Xianying wouldn't do anything. But facing someone who had once passionately pursued her, she always felt a little uncomfortable. In fact, she believed that Li Junxing might not have deep feelings for her. It was just the desire to conquer, just like that person. Shi Mingwan, who was a little absent-minded, walked a little faster. She didn't notice that someone happened to turn around in front of her and happened to come towards her. She accidentally fell into the other party's arms. Sorry. Shi Mingwan quickly apologized and wanted to leave his embrace. She was wearing high heels today, so she accidentally tripped over her left foot with her right foot. Not only did she lose her footing, but she also fell into his embrace. Shi Mingwan had never encountered such an embarrassing situation. She almost didn't dare to raise her head. However, he heard a low chuckle from above his head. Then, his body was supported by someone, and he stood firm. Using this movement, she raised her head and realized that the person in front of her was very familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. I'm sorry. Shi Mingwan bit her lip and felt a little embarrassed. It's okay. Li Junxing shook his head. Today was the first month of Su Qingsang and Hui Jinyao's child. He had just flown over from Lin City today. He didn't expect to encounter such a romantic encounter as soon as he arrived. I'm so sorry. Shi Mingwan knew that the people who came today were either rich or powerful. They were all business friends of the Hui family. Therefore, he was indeed a little embarrassed. It really doesn't matter. Li Junxing smiled and took a step back. He looked at Shi Mingwan with a flash of amazement in his eyes. Speaking of which, he had never seen Shi Mingwan before. When he was in Lin City, it was unlikely that Hui Jinyao would invite Shi Mingwan to a gathering with them. When Shi Mingwan came to Rong City to play and was brought to play with Hui Jinyao's group of childhood friends, Li Junxing was in Lin City. Therefore, Su Qingsang and Hui Jinyao had been married for more than a year, but Li Junxing had never seen Shi Mingwan. Shi Mingwan didn't wear a formal dress when she came over today, but she was very formal. She wore a classic Hepburn black dress with a red suit jacket on the outside. Red and black were matched by her, and there was a hint of passion in her cold elegance. It was a very suitable color scheme, and Shi Mingwan had put on light makeup today. Her facial features were already very bright and beautiful. Looking at her like this, she looked even more interesting. If one looked closely, they could see the faint worry in Shi Mingwan's eyes. He gave off a contradictory feeling, yet surprisingly harmonious feeling. Shi Mingwan wanted to laugh. She rarely made stupid mistakes like today. It was really the first time. Are you also here to attend the full moon banquet? She looked at Li Junxing and felt that he looked a little familiar. After asking this question, her eyes suddenly widened as if she had remembered something. Yes. Li Junxing looked at Shi Mingwan. He had never seen her before. You too? Yes. Shi Mingwan nodded. The moment Li Junxing nodded, she completely remembered who he was. You Mayor Li? You know me? Li Junxing listened to Shi Mingwan and tilted his head. You're from Lin City? Yes. Shi Mingwan was really a little excited now. Although she knew that the Hui family knew people who weren't ordinary, and she had also seen some people who often appeared on TV just now, she was surprised to see them here. But Li Junxing was different. He was the mayor of Lin City. She was a small citizen, and it was her first time meeting the mayor. This made her a little excited. Hello, Mayor Li. This isn't Lin City. You don't have to be so polite to me. Li Junxing looked at Shi Mingwan. Are you Hui Jinyao's friend? Or a relative? Since he called Hui Jinyao by his name, it meant that Li Junxing had a good relationship with Hui Jinyao. Shi Mingwan also relaxed a little. I'm Su Qingsang's friend. Li Junxing knew that Su Qingsang was from Lin City. He didn't ask any more questions. I see. Then please help yourself. I'll go in and greet the old master first. Okay. Shi Mingwan waited until Li Junxing's figure disappeared before she recovered from the shock. She didn't expect that she would have the chance to meet the mayor of Lin City. This feeling was really subtle. She walked towards the bathroom at the other end of the corridor. At the corner, there was the men's bathroom outside and the women's bathroom opposite. Before she could go in, her hand was grabbed by someone. Before she could react, she was pulled into the men's bathroom. Shi Mingwan was shocked. Her first reaction was that she had met a pervert. Her second reaction was that this was a 5-star hotel. All the people who came today were famous people, so it shouldn't be. Her guess was quickly confirmed. A familiar smell came to her nose. She was very familiar with this smell after a year. She suddenly raised her head, but what she saw was Zhang Hao's sinister face. She didn't have time to care about his ugly expression. Instead, she immediately realized the situation in front of her. Are you crazy? This is the men's bathroom? She was extremely panicked. She wanted to leave this place as soon as possible, but John Hauser blocked her lips in the next second. It was as if she had been bitten by a piranha. She only felt pain on her lips. She couldn't escape. She couldn't leave. Her entire body was tightly trapped by him. This was a 5-star hotel. There were constantly people coming and going outside. This was still the men's bathroom. Jean Hauser's attitude made Sher Mingwan think that she was a prostitute for a moment. She struggled up, raised her hand, and was about to swing it at Jean Hauser's face. Jean Hauser's reaction was faster than she thought. He quickly grabbed her hand and used force to restrain her hands behind her back. Because of her resistance, the force on his lips became heavier. Sher Mingwan's lips were bitten by him until they hurt. She wanted to retreat, but Jean Hauser's strength wasn't something she could compare to. Woo-woo. She glared at him. Her eyes were filled with resistance, dissatisfaction, and anger. Jean Hauser met her gaze for a long time. Finally, he let go of his hand and retreated a little, but he still trapped her in his arms. Sher Mingwan's breathing was a little breathless. Her lips hurt. She suspected that he had bitten her lips. Jean Hauser, let go of me. She wanted to push him away and leave this place. If she saw her in the men's bathroom, even if she didn't do anything, even if no one here knew her, it would be enough to make her feel embarrassed. Wan Xianyang, Hu Jiniao's childhood friend, the second young master of the Wan family. Now, he runs 2 antique shops. Among them, Gu Longshuan's business is the biggest. Every year, it brings Wan Xianyang hundreds of millions of yuan in profits. Sher Mingwan's body froze. She didn't understand what Jean Hauser meant by this. Li Junsheng, the mayor of Lin City. His family has been in the right place for generations. Li Junsheng is young, but he's already the top leader of Lin City. In the past year, through the investment of a master, he's developed and renovated the old city area of Lin City. He's very popular in Lin City. Sher Mingwan's back was tightly pressed against the door. She didn't understand what he meant. I didn't expect you to be so good at seducing men. You're actually able to attract the favor of 2 men like this in one go. Sher Mingwan watched as he said such words in such a mocking tone. Without thinking, she raised her hand and slapped him in the face. However, before her hand could touch his face, he had already grabbed it. He leaned forward and pinned her between the door and his chest. Are you angry? Jean Hauser, not every man is like you. Like me? What do you mean? Jean Hauser leaned over and got close to Sher Mingwan's face. His breath pointed at her cheek. She turned her face away as if she was avoiding him, bit her lip, and pinched the nails of her hand that he didn't grab into her palm. What? She didn't understand how things had turned out like this. More than a year ago, Sher Mingwan hung up on Su Qingsang. She felt a little lonely. Su Qingsang followed Hu Jiniao back to Rong City for the Mid-Autumn Festival. She was married. Although she didn't forget her friends because of love, she really didn't have much time to see Su Qingsang. She felt a little lonely, but Hu Jiniao seemed to be a good person. Although he had no money, he still lived in Su Qingsang's house. The conditions were also ordinary. But as long as he treated Su Qingsang well, it was fine. She looked through all the orders she had received before. Recently, the studio's business had been good. Ever since Su Qingsang got married, her orders had increased a lot. Even though Su Qingsang was the illegitimate daughter of the Su family, her wedding was still quite eye-catching. She designed her wedding dress herself. After the wedding, the studio's business had improved a lot. Sister Sher, the customer from last time, is here again. After knocking on the door, the secretary, Xiao Qiu, poked his head in. Which one? It's that Miss Chun. I'll go take a look. When Sher Mingwan heard the surname Chun, she immediately thought of a person. There were 2 people sitting in the reception room. One was Chun Fei, whom she had met last time, and the other was Jean Hauser. Seeing the 2 of them appear at the same time, Sher Mingwan's expression changed for a moment. It was only for a moment. She quickly composed herself and turned to look at Chun Fei. Hello, Miss Chun. Last time, Chun Feifei came over and said that she wanted to order a dress, but after saying the design requirements, she didn't say anything else. Hello. Chun Feifei was gentle and weak. When she saw Shi Mingwan, she stood up rather politely. Miss Shi, I might have to trouble you this time. I have a banquet in a few days, and I want to choose a dress for myself. Although Shi Mingwan mainly designed wedding dresses, she also had dresses here. Looking at Chun Feifei, she nodded. No problem. May I know what Miss Chin's request is? White, and be more generous. Chun Feifei smiled quite appropriately. Why don't you introduce it to me, Miss Shi? Okay. Shi Mingwan nodded and brought Chun Feifei to try on the dress. Before leaving, she glanced at John Hauser. He sat there with his legs elegantly crossed. He was holding a magazine in his hand and casually flipping through it. Chun Feifei had already walked to the door, but she suddenly turned around and walked in front of John Hauser. Brother Hao, I'm going to try on the clothes. Wait for me. Okay, John Hauser replied. His gaze didn't even leave the magazine. Chun Feifei seemed a little dissatisfied. She couldn't help but bend down and kiss John Hauser on the cheek. Thank you, Brother Hao. You're so nice to me. Shi Mingwan maintained a straight face and didn't look in that direction. Therefore, she didn't see that John Hauser's brows were slightly furrowed because of Chun Feifei's actions. Chun Feifei also knew that she couldn't go too far. If she went any further, John Hauser would be unhappy. She couldn't help but feel a little depressed, but she hid it very well. Shi Mingwan brought Chun Feifei to try on the clothes. Along the way, her mind couldn't help but think of John Hauser. He had changed a lot now, but no matter how much he changed, she could still recognize him. Lowering her eyes, Shi Mingwan forced herself to retract her thoughts and focus on Chun Feifei. This is our dress exhibition area. Other than our own designs, there are also some custom-made clothes from abroad. As a studio, of course, they had to try their best to meet the needs of people at different levels. This one isn't bad. Chun Feifei picked up a white dress and compared it to herself. Miss Chun, you can go and try it on. Shi Mingwan looked at Chun Feifei's figure. Miss Chun is so slim. You should wear size S, right? Yes. Chun Feifei nodded, but she placed the dress in Shi Mingwan's hand. I'm sorry, but I don't think I like the lace on it. It's okay. You can take your time to look at it. Okay. Chun Feifei nodded and turned to look at her as if she had thought of something. Miss Shi, your studio is called Song Seeking. What's the name? Shi Mingwan pursed her lips slightly. Life is like a dream and a song, so it's called Song Seeking. I didn't know that Miss Shi was such an elegant person. Miss Chun, you're too polite. Shi Mingwan stood behind her, but she knew very well that this name didn't mean that. Song Seeking, looking for dear brother. But for so many years, so long, there was no news of her at all. It wasn't easy for her to see him, but her dear brother had completely forgotten about her. These two, as they spoke, Chun Feifei had already picked out 2 dresses. Shi Mingwan led her to the fitting room. Shi Mingwan looked at him and finally picked out a set of clothes for him that she felt were very suitable and matched the one Chun Feifei was wearing just now. This set, put it together with the one Feifei wore just now. It wasn't that Shi Mingwan hadn't met straightforward customers before, but there weren't many such straightforward customers. She took the card from John Hauser's hand and asked Xiao Qiu to swipe the card for John Hauser. Chun Feifei was obviously very satisfied with John Hauser's cooperation. The smile on her face became a little more sincere. Brother Hao, you're so good to me. However, you still have to try it. If it doesn't fit, can't you ask her to change it? Although I believe you look good in anything. But still try it. As she spoke, she held John Hauser's arm. John Hauser's body stiffened for a moment, but it was only for a moment. Then I'll go try it on. With the excuse of going to try on the clothes, he successfully broke free from Chun Feifei's hand and went to try on the clothes. The dark suit, the close-fitting cut, and John Hauser's standard inverted triangular figure. This suit suited him very well. Brother Hao is so handsome. Chun Feifei's eyes were filled with undisguised admiration. When she was about to approach, John Hauser entered the fitting room again and changed his clothes. Is it okay? It's okay. Shi Mingwan had already asked Xiao Qiu to wrap up the clothes. May I ask if you want to take them away or send them to your door? We'll take them away directly. Chen Feifei hooked her hand around Zhang Hao's wrist. Brother Hao, it's getting late. Let's go to the bacon restaurant for dinner. I heard that there's a new chef there. He's very good at cooking Cantonese cuisine. Let's go and have a try. Zhang Hao didn't say anything and left directly. Shi Mingwan watched the two of them leave, and her mind couldn't help but think of that year. She watched helplessly as her dear brother got further and further away from her. She shook her head and reminded herself in her heart that Zhang Hao was no longer her dear brother. She asked Xiao Qiu to pack up the clothes. Shi Mingwan planned to go back to her office and finish the design drawing that she had received earlier. However, just as she sat down, Xiao Qiu came in again. Sister Shi, I picked this up from the article just now. It was a man's wallet. The black leather was very textured, and it could be seen that it was very valuable. This should be Mr. Zhang's. Just leave it. Contact him according to the phone number left by the client later. Okay. Xiao Qiu took the wallet and was about to leave. Shi Mingwan suddenly called out to him, Wait a minute. Just leave it. It's almost time to get off work. I'll call him to inform him. You guys can get off work when it's time. Xiao Qiu didn't think too much about it. Shi Mingwan stayed in the office alone all year round to draw until late. She had a lounge upstairs. If it was late, she would sleep in the studio. Since she said that she would inform the other party, she put down the wallet and left. Shi Mingwan picked up the pen and was about to continue drawing, but when she saw the wallet, she couldn't help but reach out to take it. However, just as she picked it up, she forced herself to put down again. In her heart, she had already accepted that that man wasn't her dear brother, so why should she look at his things? He returned his attention back to his drawing, and before he knew it, 3 hours had passed. When she finished drawing, she realized that the night sky had darkened. It was already very late. No wonder she was so hungry. She wanted to eat something to fill her stomach. However, her gaze landed on the wallet again. Chapter 649. Shi Mingwan hesitated for a while, then opened it. Other than a few cards and a stack of cash, there was no other identification. Shi Mingwan was about to close the wallet when she saw that the place where the photo was supposed to be was white. It seemed to be the back of the photo. A strange thought flashed through his mind. What kind of situation was this? Why didn't they show the front of the photo? She looked at the back of the photo and felt that she could see a secret. Out of politeness, she should put down her wallet and contact Zhang Hao to get it. But she really wanted to know whose photo was in his wallet. She reached for the photo and was about to pull it out. Miss Shi's manners seemed to be lacking. Didn't anyone tell you not to touch other people's things? The sudden voice at the door shocked her so much that she almost threw the purse in her hand. Although he didn't throw it out, it was close enough. Her purse fell on the table with a thud. She looked at the tall figure at the door and felt guilty. Mr. Zhang? Zhang Hao stood at the door, expressionless. His thin lips were pressed into a straight line. His slender legs were now striding inside. With every step she took, Shi Mingwan felt as if the other party's footsteps were stepping on her heart. She tried to stand up, but found that her body was very weak. There was no strength in his legs at all. She could only press her back against the back of the chair she was sitting on. She wasn't a timid person, but she didn't have the confidence to be caught red-handed doing such a bad thing. Zhang Hao had already walked to the desk. He walked around the desk and stood in front of Shi Mingwan. Shi Mingwan blinked and tried her best to remain calm. Mr. Zhang, my staff found this wallet. It is now returned to its rightful owner. She placed the wallet in front of Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao didn't take it. Instead, he bent down and looked at her. His gaze was too sharp. Even Shi Mingwan, who had seen many celebrities, felt a little scared when she was stared at like this. Mr. Zhang, you're not going to play the game of mistaken identity anymore? What does that mean? Shi Mingwan blinked and took a few seconds to understand what he meant. Her face was a little red. She couldn't tell if she had mistaken him for someone else. Mr. Zhang, if there's nothing else, we're already off work. She lowered her eyes, feeling an indescribable sadness in her heart. That year was deeply engraved in her heart, leaving an unerasable mark. But the person who had left such a heavy stroke in her life didn't remember anything between them. Shi Mengwan's rationality returned. She remembered that the man in front of her was no longer her dear brother. Now, he was Jean Hauser, another woman's boyfriend. She stood up and casually tidied up the things on the table. Just as he was about to leave, he realized that Jean Hauser was standing there without moving. She was about to reach for her bag when she paused. She thought about it, picked up the wallet again, and handed it to Jean Hauser. Mr. Jean. Jean Hauser stared at her face for a long time, then reached out and took the wallet. The moment he took the purse away, his fingertips brushed against the back of her hand. His hands were a little cold. It was already past the Mid-Autumn Festival. Lin City was very hot during the day, but it was a little cold at night. However, she still felt that his hands were a little too cold. The moment he retracted his hand, he met Jean Hauser's gaze. He was still staring at her. His eyes were long and narrow, and his gaze was sharp. The bridge of his nose was high, and his thin lips were slightly pursed. Shi Mengwan stared at his lips, and suddenly had an urge to lean forward and kiss his thin lips. His lips were as cold as his hands, or were they warm? Realizing what she was thinking, Shi Mengwan's face slowly turned a little red. She had never been in love before, and such a secret thought made her feel a little ashamed. Mr. Jean. Jean Hauser stared at her face and finally retracted his hand. He wrapped the money up. Shi Mengwan heaved a sigh of relief. The atmosphere was too awkward for a man and a woman to be alone in the same room. However, Shi Mengwan quickly realized that she was happy too early. Her studio was on the third floor of an office building in a pretty good area in Lin City. There was a corridor that wasn't long from the studio, and then there was the elevator. When the two of them walked to the elevator together, Shi Mengwan realized that she was going to take the elevator with Jean Hauser. Realizing this, she took 2 steps back. Jean Hauser happened to press the elevator button at this moment. When he saw her actions, he turned around and glanced at her. Mr. Jean, you go first. I seem to have forgotten to lock the door." As she spoke, she took another step back. The elevator arrived at this moment, and Jean Hauser stood there without moving. "You locked it just now." "Huh? When I came out, you locked it. Was that so?" Shi Mengwan felt inexplicably awkward. The elevator opened, and Jean Hauser stood there looking at her. She had no choice but to grit her teeth and quickly walk into the elevator. Jean Hauser looked at her back and followed her into the elevator. The door closed, and only the two of them were left in the narrow space. Shi Mengwan had never been like this before. The short 3 floors made her feel like a year. Jean Hauser was standing less than 50 centimeters away from her. She could even smell the scent on his body. It was faint, similar to the scent of mint. The last time she thought he was her dear brother, she smelled the same scent. She moved to the side without a trace, putting some distance between the two of them. When she looked up, she realized that Jean Hauser was staring at her face. Her moving footsteps were frozen there. Her face was a little hot. Such an abnormal person wasn't like her usual self at all. The elevator didn't move. She couldn't help but look up at the elevator and realize that they had actually stopped on the 3rd floor. She was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand why Jean Hauser didn't press the floor button. She looked at Jean Hauser, and he was also looking at her. Shi Mengwan felt uncomfortable being stared at by him. She didn't understand what he wanted to do. She didn't want to stay in such a confined space with Jean Hauser, so she could only choose to press the one. The moment her hand was about to touch the button, Shi Mengwan realized that when she leaned close to the button, she was also close to Jean Hauser. Her arm brushed past his body, and her shoulder was very close to him. Such a close distance made Shi Mengwan momentarily lose her composure. She subconsciously looked at Jean Hauser and found that he was also looking at her. His deep gaze was deep. She couldn't see the meaning in his gaze, but she instinctively murmured those 3 words. "Dear brother." Jean Hauser's gaze suddenly changed and became a little more gloomy. Shi Mengwan was shocked by the sudden change in his gaze and subconsciously wanted to retreat. However, she forgot that she was leaning forward at this moment. With this retreat, her entire body lost balance. She subconsciously wanted to grab something, but there was nothing else in front of her other than Zhang Haoze. In a flash, Shi Mingwan gave up and let her body move forward. She wanted to use her hands to stabilize herself. A big hand appeared on her waist. Zhang Haoze's hand was placed on her waist. Her body was half suspended and pressed against his body. Her hands were forward, and her entire body was in a strange posture. Shi Mingwan was embarrassed again. She was in a rather sorry state. She used both her hands and feet to try to leave Zhang Haoze's body. However, in her panic, her hand hit his face instead. She didn't really hit him, but brushed past his face. She was shocked and quickly retracted her hand. As a result, her upper body couldn't exert any strength, and she leaned completely on Zhang Haoze's body. "Throwing yourself into my arms." Shi Mingwan's face was very red. She mumbled and wanted to explain herself, but Zhang Haoze easily scooped her body up at this moment and pressed her against the elevator wall. "Zhang, first, you mistook me for someone else, and then you threw yourself into my arms? Miss Shi, do you always treat your clients like this?" His almost humiliating words made Shi Mingwan's face instantly turn as pale as blood. She wanted to push Zhang Haoze away, but she realized that his body was as immovable as a mountain. "Mr. Zhang, please let go of me. You're not calling me dear brother anymore?" Zhang Haoze stared at Shi Mingwan's red face because of embarrassment and shyness. His slender and slightly cold fingers gently caressed her cheeks. Shi Mingwan's body instinctively trembled. She looked above Zhang Haoze. "Mr. Zhang, please let go." There were cameras in the elevator, and she really had no intention of becoming the news person of the entire building tomorrow. Zhang Haoze stared at her face and didn't retreat. Instead, he put his hand past her side. Shi Mingwan became more and more nervous. At this moment, Zhang Haoze pressed the button for the first floor. The moment he retracted his hand, he approached her. Their faces were less than 5 centimeters apart. He stared into her eyes. Shi Mingwan had a pair of extremely beautiful almond-shaped eyes, and the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. She looked seductive, especially when her red lips were slightly opened, as if she was kissing him seductively. Zhang Haoze's eyes darkened slightly, and his tone was even colder than before. "If you don't want a man to have sex with you in the elevator, don't make such a seductive move next time." The redness on Shi Mingwan's face disappeared completely. The elevator had already reached the first floor. Zhang Haoze let go of his hand and took a step back. Without looking at Shi Mingwan, he stepped out of the elevator and left. If it weren't for her last bit of willpower, Shi Mingwan would have slid to the ground. She had never been humiliated like this in her life. Seduction? He really dared to say it. If it weren't for the fact that he was the dear brother that she had always missed. If it weren't for the fact that she always had different feelings for him. How could she let herself lose her composure like this? Seeing that the elevator was about to close again, Shi Mingwan grabbed the bag on her shoulder and quickly stepped out of the elevator. The night wind blew, and it was a little cold. It also allowed her to completely calm down. Some people were no longer the people they used to be. She didn't need to care. She didn't need to care. She just needed to pretend that that person wasn't her dear brother. She just needed to find her dear brother again. Su Qingsang didn't stay in Rome City for long. She only stayed for a week before coming back. Every time she went out, she would bring a gift for herself. This time was no exception. Shi Mingwan had something on her mind, but she couldn't let Su Qingsang see it. She used her laughter to distract Su Qingsang's attention. She didn't realize that there was something wrong with her. After all, he was the dear brother that she missed so much. Shi Mingwan couldn't stand him talking to her like that. Fortunately, she was used to adjusting her mood. Within 2 days, she let herself put this matter aside. Chun Feifei came again later, but she came with a friend of hers. Not seeing Zhang Haoze, Shi Mingwan couldn't tell whether she was disappointed or relieved. Half a month had passed. That day, Su Qingsang rarely had time and said that she wanted to treat her to a meal. The two sisters hadn't had a gathering for a long time. Shi Mingwan went and found that Hu Jinyao was also there. At first, she was a little uncomfortable, but now she was completely used to it. With Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang at the scene, it wouldn't be called showing off. It was called dog butcher. The two of them had to show off their love during a meal, which made her a little speechless. After a few teasing words, she felt a little stifled. They didn't even talk about dating and jumped straight to marriage. They were also doing very well now. Maybe she really had to listen to Su Qing-sang's suggestion and forget her dear brother and find a man. Maybe he could be like Su Qing-sang and Hua Jinyao. Although she thought so, she clearly knew that it was unlikely. After separating from Su Qing-sang, Shi Mingwan wasn't in a hurry to go home. Feeling a little annoyed, she unconsciously drove the car to the entrance of a small alley. The alley was very dark, and only the intersection had a faint light. Shi Mingwan didn't feel afraid. She stared at the small alley. She could almost imagine what kind of scene it would be like if she were to pass through this alley. It had been more than 10 years. Many places in Lin City had changed, but this place hadn't changed until now. Passing through the entrance of the alley, there were small alleys on both sides. They were of different sizes, and there were many people living there. Almost all the people at the bottom of Lin City society lived here. She looked at the hidden darkness behind the intersection and got out of the car. She was very bold today. In fact, she used to come to this place often. She wasn't afraid of encountering danger. Although the people here weren't very friendly, there really weren't any bad people. There was a breakfast stall at the outermost part of the alley. It was closed now. Further inside, there was a small shop. It was also closed today. She still remembered that she was very hungry at that time. She wanted to eat, but she didn't have any money on her. What happened after that? Dear brother found a steamed bun and opened it, half for each of them. He said that it was half for each of them, but in fact, her half was more, and his half was less. She said, "Dear brother, you're bigger. Do you eat this big piece?" "No need. I'm a man. I can withstand hunger better. You eat." A teenager wasn't a man at all, but Shi Mingwan felt that the young man was an indomitable man. He was so thin and young, but he raised her for a whole year. At that time, she was eating the steamed bun and watching dear brother finish the small half of the steamed bun in a few bites. She knew that dear brother wasn't full. She deliberately left half of it, saying that she didn't have an appetite today and couldn't eat anymore. Before dear brother could react, she put the steamed bun into his mouth. At that time, how did dear brother react? Shi Mingwan's memories were interrupted. She heard a voice coming from the fork in the alley not far ahead. It was getting late, and Shi Mingwan didn't intend to cause trouble. She turned around and wanted to leave, but she heard a voice that wasn't unfamiliar to her. "Cut the crap. Do you want to come one by one? Or do you want to come meet together?" This voice was clearly Zhan Hao's. Shi Mingwan was stunned for a moment. Not only did she not leave, but she also walked closer. Very arrogant. "Since that's the case, let's teach him a lesson." A sharp male voice sounded. Shi Mingwan quickly heard muffled groans and the sound of fighting. She could tell that there were quite a few people on the other side. Using the dim street lamp at the entrance of the alley, she approached very carefully. Using a telephone pole as cover, she carefully poked her head out. She saw a group of people fighting. No, it wasn't right to say that it was a group of people fighting. It should be a group of people fighting around a person. The person who was surrounded was naturally Zhan Hao. When she saw that face clearly under the street lamp, Shi Mingwan almost screamed. Why was he here? Also, why were so many people beating him up? Could it be that he got into trouble again? She thought of that year. Dear brother worked very hard every day to support her. Once, when he was about to come back, he was stopped at the entrance of the alley by two youths who looked taller and stronger than dear brother. The other party wanted dear brother to hand over all his money. How could dear brother be willing? In order to protect the money that he had earned with great difficulty, he refused to hand it over. In the end, he was beaten up by the two of them. At that time, it was also like now, two people beating him up. Back then, Zhan Hao might not have had the ability, but now he should be different, right? He was someone who was going to marry Chen Feifei. How could such a person provoke these people from the underworld? Shi Mingwan's mind was running wild. However, her eyes were filled with worry. She wondered if she should call the police now and ask them to come, or should she think of a way to lure those people away? However, before Shi Mingwan could do anything, she saw the situation in front of her clearly. She, who had been letting her imagination run wild just now, didn't notice that Jean Hauser had already beaten that group of people to the ground. Jean Hauser was still standing. He was a little far away, so she couldn't tell if he was injured. However, she was stunned to see that the people who had just attacked him were all lying on the ground. There were cries of pain in the alley. It could be seen that they were all seriously injured. Such a change shocked Mengwan. When did Dear Brother's skills become so good? Tell your master that no matter what he wants to do, I'm here and will accompany him at any time. One of the people lying on the ground said for a long time, but he didn't come up with anything new. Over and over again, it was just a few threatening words. Mengwan saw that Jean Hauser was fine and was about to leave, but Jean Hauser had already started to walk in this direction. Mengwan was shocked. Before she could think of where to hide, Jean Hauser had already walked to her side. When he passed by her, he glanced at her and then stopped in his tracks. He looked at her and saw that half of her body was hidden behind the telephone pole, but it was completely useless. She was still clearly seen by others. Have you heard enough? Mengwan was shocked. She didn't expect that she would be discovered by him. She had nowhere to hide, even if she wanted to. She looked at the person behind her who was still lying on the ground in pain. Mengwan took a big step back. She didn't know what was under her feet, but she almost stepped on it. However, this time, she balanced her body well and didn't let herself fall again. What a coincidence. Mr. Jean Hauser ignored her greeting. He looked at the people at the other end of the alley, and finally, his gaze fell on Mengwan. Chapter 650. Jean Hauser narrowed his eyes slightly. His voice wasn't loud, but the coldness that emanated from it once again explained his current emotions. No, Mengwan quickly explained. I didn't follow you. I just happened to pass by. Passing by? Jean Hauser's gaze became sharper. Passing by here? Mengwan was a little embarrassed. Indeed, he wasn't here to pass by. He was only here to reminisce about the past. She couldn't help but glance at Jean Hauser. What about him? He should be considered a successful person now, right? Why did he appear here? Realizing that she had asked that question out loud, Mengwan's expression became a little more uncomfortable. Jean Hauser didn't answer her question. He stared at her face and suddenly approached her. Does Miss Sher live nearby? No. Then why is Miss Sher here? His slender legs took a step forward and successfully fixed Mengwan's body between her and the telephone pole. Facing such a predicament again, Mengwan felt a little uncomfortable. She leaned back and didn't try to push him away. She knew the difference in strength between the two of them. Is this your home? This was the second time he had faced such a situation, especially when they had such an unpleasant meeting the last time. Mengwan's tone wasn't very polite. She had always been a woman with a sharp edge. It was only because he was her big brother that she had been enduring in front of him. If this place isn't yours, then what right do you have to question me like this? Jean Hauser narrowed his eyes slightly because of her sharp retort, and his body suddenly moved closer. He lowered his body and confronted Mengwan. The malice in his eyes made Mengwan's back turn cold, but she refused to admit defeat. Since you can come to this place, I can naturally come as well. Mr. Jean wasn't a police officer. Can you please let go of me now? You want me to leave? The alley was dark, and not far behind him. He could still hear the wailing of the group of people. In front of him was Jean Hauser's body. No matter how he looked at it, the atmosphere was very strange. Mengwan didn't want to stay any longer, so she saw that Jean Hauser didn't plan to move aside. She stooped and tried to escape sideways. Jean Hauser did not move. When she retreated, she touched his arm. He heard an extremely soft, muffled groan. Mengwan, who could have left, suddenly stopped in her tracks. She looked at Jean Hauser, who was standing next to her, and her gaze fell on his arm. She saw the faint blood stains on his elbow. You hurt? Mengwan suddenly lost her cool. Instinctively, she held his arm. Are you okay? Jean Hauser frowned slightly. He didn't even notice that he was injured. What do you think? Does it hurt? Do you want to go to the hospital? 3 words of concern in a row made Jean Hauser's brows furrow even tighter. Mengwan wasn't short, but she was holding his arm, so he could only see the top of her head. Shall I take you to the hospital? After Shi Mengwan said this, she looked up at him and met his cold expression. Only then did she remember that the man in front of her was no longer her dear brother. Her hand jerked back as if she had been struck by lightning. Annoyed at himself for being a busybody, he turned around to leave. Zhang Haoze followed beside her at this moment. After taking a few steps, Shi Mengwan suddenly stopped and looked at him. Didn't you say you were going to take me to the hospital? She did say that, but that was what she thought. Shi Mengwan's footsteps became faster and faster. Zhang Haoze's footsteps didn't need to be fast. His steps were much bigger than hers. Shi Mengwan felt the footsteps behind her, and her emotions were very complicated. When he walked to her car and opened the door, Zhang Haoze also got into the car. She sat in the driver's seat and looked at Zhang Haoze. Mr. Zhang said that I seduced you yesterday. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to escape if I pester you? The night was blurry. The dim streetlights made her facial features look hazy, and her watery eyes were a little provocative. Drive. Zhang Haoze retracted his gaze and didn't look at her again. He leaned back against the back of the chair. Shi Mengwan gritted her teeth and wanted to chase Zhang Haoze out of the car. She glanced at his side profile and started the car in the end. Don't go to the hospital. 5 extremely faint words. If it weren't for the silence in the car, Shi Mengwan wouldn't have heard it. She couldn't help but look at him again. She found that Zhang Haoze's eyes were half closed, and he was leaning against the car's seat, as if he was about to fall asleep. Shi Mengwan retracted her gaze and stepped on the accelerator. On the way, Shi Mengwan turned around and looked at Zhang Haoze. His arm was still bleeding. Her heart trembled slightly. She thought of her dear brother. More than 10 years ago, Shi Mengwan, who was only 12 years old, got lost from her parents. Although she said she got lost, she actually ran away from home. She was from Lin City, but she wasn't from Lin City. She was from a small county town under Lin City. Shi Mengwan's father was the eldest in the family. He had 2 younger brothers. The small county town where Shi Mengwan lived was very patriarchal. Shi Mengwan's 2 uncles both had sons. Only Shi Mengwan didn't. Shi Mengwan's grandmother was very dissatisfied with Shi Mengwan's mother because of this. Shi Mengwan's mother didn't have a good life in the Shi family. Because she had injured her body when giving birth to Shi Mengwan, it wasn't easy for her to get pregnant again. Until Shi Mengwan was 9 years old, she hadn't had a second child. Shi Mengwan's father was the eldest of the 3 brothers of the Shi family, but he didn't have a son. Shi Mengwan's grandmother disliked this eldest daughter-in-law more and more. It wasn't until Shi Mengwan was 11 years old that her mother finally got pregnant miraculously. Shi Mengwan thought that this mother would definitely give birth to a younger brother. This way, her mother's life should be better. But who knew? The second child Shi Mengwan's mother gave birth to was still a daughter. Shi Mengwan's grandmother's expression became even uglier. Even Shi Mengwan's father's heart was heavy. There was clearly a little sister in the family, but no one had a smile on their faces. Shi Mengwan was already sensible. She didn't like the atmosphere at home. She hated how her grandmother scolded her every day and said that her mother was a hen that didn't lay eggs. She hated how her father frowned because she was a daughter. She hated her mother even more. It was clearly not her fault for giving birth to a daughter, but she had to bear all the responsibility on herself. No matter how much she hated that family and the atmosphere at home, she still tried her best to comfort her mother and help her take care of her little sister. She comforted her mother and told her that giving birth to a boy or a girl wasn't something she could decide alone. She didn't need to blame herself or feel guilty. Even if her mother didn't listen at all, she still had to say it. She had learned all of this from her textbooks and had seen it on TV. Also, men and women were already equal now. The teacher had already said so, but her mother still thought so. She was backward and ignorant. Regardless of whether her mother listened or not, she tried her best to maintain the peace and harmony in the family, until she heard her grandmother persuade her father to send her sister away. She could give birth to another child then. She said that if her mother didn't agree, she would let her father take the second or third uncle's children and adopt them. Shi Mengwan was finally angry. Her little sister was so cute. Even if she was a girl, she was still her father's child. Her father actually wanted to give her sister away. Shi Mingwan, who had been taking care of her sister for a few months and had feelings for her, was furious on the spot. What are you giving her away for? If you want to give her away, just send me away. My sister is still so young. Haven't you thought about what will happen to her in the future if you send her away? Grandma didn't expect her to hear it. She exploded and started to curse. After scolding Shi Mingwan's mother, she started to curse Shi Mingwan. She said that it was all her fault and that she didn't bring her younger brother. Shi Mingwan was furious. If that's the case, then I'll leave this family. I want to see if you can do as you wish without me. Shi Mingwan's father and grandmother both thought that she was saying it out of anger. But Shi Mingwan was serious. She really ran away from home. She took her usual New Year's money and pocket money and directly picked a car from town to the county town. That day, there was still the last bus to Lin City in the county town. Shi Mingwan was really bold. She got on the bus to Lin City just like that. But it wasn't until night fell and the car stopped at Lin City Station that she realized what she had done in a moment of impulse. She, a 12-year-old girl, had run away from home just like that. Shi Mingwan, who got out of the car, had a moment of regret. She had never left home in her life. All her knowledge of the world, other than school, was books and television. Holding the little money she had left, Shi Mingwan didn't know where she could go or what she could do. Sister Xiao, who lived next door, said how much money she could earn a year working outside. But she was too young now. At the age of 12, although she was already close to 5 meters tall, she was still a child. Moreover, she didn't have a degree. She hadn't even finished junior high school. How could she find a job? She walked along the streets of Lin City Station. The more she walked, the more remote she became. Later, she walked to this area. This was the famous civilian area of Lin City. At that time, although this place wasn't dirty and messy, it definitely wasn't very clean. Shi Mingwan got hungry as she walked. She picked a small shop and bought a piece of bread and a bottle of water to fill her stomach. However, she didn't know that she was being targeted. Although she was only 12 years old, her mother was a famous beauty in the area. Although Father Shi's personality wasn't strong enough with his grandmother, he was also very good-looking. Shi Mingwan perfectly inherited all of her parents' traits. She had almond-shaped eyes, willowy eyebrows, delicate skin, and shiny black hair. The 12-year-old Shi Mingwan could already foresee what kind of beauty she would be when she grew up. What a lonely and beautiful little girl experience. Shi Mingwan wasn't an idiot. Although she lived in a small county town, the teachers would also give safety education. When she was eating the bread, she realized that someone was staring at her from not far away. At that moment, Shi Mingwan was very flustered. Once again, she began to regret her impulse. But for her to go home now, not only did she have no choice, but she also didn't want to. Her family wasn't poor, but they weren't rich either. After buying the bus ticket, she didn't have much money left. Even if she wanted to go home now, she didn't have the money to buy a ticket. More importantly, she didn't have a car to go back now. She looked at the two people who looked like hooligans staring at her from afar. She gritted her teeth and entered the small shop again. She took the opportunity to buy another piece of bread and made a bet with herself. She told the shop owner that she was being followed. She asked the lady boss if there was a back door in the shop. She wanted to leave through the back door. Fortunately, the lady boss was a good person. She told Shi Mingwan that there was a small door at the back beside the bathroom. However, she also told her that after leaving this place, there would be a small alley, which was intricate. It was easy for people who didn't know to get lost here. Shi Mingwan wasn't afraid of getting lost now. It was better if it was intricate. That way, if those two people targeted her, she could think of a way to escape. She had already decided to go to the police station after leaving this place. She would let the police send her home. Granny Guan's expression would be so ugly, and her curses would be so unpleasant to hear. Anyway, she couldn't really do anything to her. At most, she would just beat her up. She left by the back door and got lost in the maze of alleys. It was fine if she got lost, but the most important thing was that any sound would scare her. She was very afraid that those two people would catch up to her and do something to her. It was also at this moment that she heard some extremely chaotic sounds. It was a dark night, the street lights were dim, and the weather was similar to today. She heard a lot of footsteps, and a few of them were very clear. Boss said that it's fine if we don't take his life. Just cripple him. Teach him a good lesson and teach him a lesson. Sure Meng-wan had already forgotten that she was also being watched. She walked around the alley and saw that in the alley, a group of people were surrounding a young man and punching and kicking him. Under the dim light, she couldn't see the young man's face clearly. However, the moment the young man raised his head, he met a pair of extremely gloomy and sharp eyes, like those of a wolf in the dark. Sure Meng-wan was shocked by that gaze. She heard the young man speak in an unpleasant voice that was unique to the voice-changing period. "You'd better kill me. Otherwise, I'll definitely return what you did to me today 10 times, 100 times in the future. Yo, this kid is quite arrogant." The voice from before sounded again. "Since that's the case, if I don't show you some power, I'll be letting down my brother Chang's reputation. Brothers, beat him to death." The group of people attacked even more fiercely. Sure Meng-wan heard a muffled groan and the sound of fists landing on a person's body. She felt pain just by looking at it. However, the young man refused to beg for mercy. Not only did he refuse to beg for mercy, but he also seized every opportunity to fight back. His eyes were especially bright in the dark night. Sure Meng-wan had never seen such a person before. He was clearly beaten to such a state, but he could make himself look calmer and calmer than them. She looked around, but there was no one here. There were too many people, and she was only a little girl. She still had a headache. She didn't know how she could help the other party. It wasn't until she saw the man who spoke pick up a steel pipe and was about to hit the young man's hand. Sure Meng-wan didn't even think about it and shouted in a louder voice, "Uncle Police, it's over here. There are people fighting over here." As she spoke, she grabbed the stone on the ground and kept hitting it at a trash can beside her. She stomped her feet on the ground with all her might. It felt like there were many people walking at the same time. The man called Brother Chang, who was holding the steel pipe, froze for a moment and snorted. He threw the steel pipe and kicked the young man. "Brat, consider yourself lucky. Brothers, let's go." Sure Meng-wan kept stomping her feet and kept hitting the trash can with the stone. The sound became denser and louder. The group of people quickly dispersed. She wasn't in a hurry to go forward. Instead, she waited until the footsteps could no longer be heard and no one appeared. Only then did she carefully poke her head out to see if everyone had really left. However, she met the extremely sinister eyes of the young man just now. That wolf-like gaze stared at her in the darkness. Sure Meng-wan was shocked and took a big step back. She, who didn't stand properly, fell to the ground just like that. The bag that she was holding just now fell to the ground. The loaf of bread also fell out of the bag. She didn't dare to pick it up. She just propped herself up with both hands on the ground and stared at the young man in a daze. He looked very disheveled, very disheveled. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. His body was covered in blood, and his hands were also covered in blood. There was still blood on his clothes. The blood that flowed from the corner of his mouth was especially frightening on a night like this. Sure Meng-wan had saved him on impulse just now, but now that she had saved him, she started to feel conflicted again. The person she saved couldn't be a bad person, right? Or the young man didn't look at her. He bent down and picked up the bread that had fallen to the ground. Sure Meng-wan became more and more nervous, but the young man tore off the plastic wrap on the outside of the bread and finished it in a few bites. What kind of operation was this? Sure Meng-wan looked at the young man and swallowed her saliva. She wanted to say that he ate her bread. However, the young man also saw the bottle of water in the bag. He glanced at her, took the bottle of water, and drank the remaining half of the bottle just like that. Throwing the bottle on the ground, the young man glanced at Sure Meng-wan and turned to leave. However, Sure Meng-wan stopped him. "Hey!" The young man turned around and looked at Sure Meng-wan again. Sure Meng-wan's lips moved. She wanted to say, "Are you going to leave just like that after eating my food?" However, the words that came out of her mouth were, "You threw the trash on the ground. That's not right." A trace of mockery flashed across the young man's hostile face. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Sure Meng-wan. She was still sitting on the ground, and the young man was standing there. The young man was nearly 7 meters tall. Shi Mengwan shrunk her neck. For the first time, she felt afraid. The young man stared at her face. Just when she thought that he would make a move on her, he finally made a move. He bent down. Shi Mengwan was shocked and instinctively covered her head with her hand. The young man picked up the plastic bags and bottles on the ground. Then, after rolling them into a ball, he threw them into the trash can at the side with great accuracy. After throwing them, he glanced at Shi Mengwan, turned around, and continued to walk forward. Shi Mengwan stood up and followed behind him for some reason. After taking a few steps, the young man suddenly turned around and looked at her. Chapter 651. Shi Mengwan was shocked. This time, she stubbornly looked at him. The youth took a step forward and raised his hand, pretending to hit her. Shi Mengwan shrunk her neck, but didn't run back. The youth clenched his hand into a fist, then retracted it and continued forward. Shi Mengwan followed behind him. She looked at the youth and didn't know why she wasn't afraid of him at all. "Why did those people hit you?" There was silence. The youth directly ignored her. "You seem to be seriously injured. Do you want to see a doctor?" The youth's footsteps quickened, and Shi Mengwan had no choice but to quicken her footsteps. "Where are your parents? Do they not care about you? Where are you going now? Aren't you afraid that those people will come looking for you again?" "Shut up." The youth finally couldn't take it anymore. He turned around and glared at Shi Mengwan. "Don't follow me." Shi Mengwan bit her lip and followed behind the youth again as he continued to walk forward. The youth walked very fast. He made up his mind to get rid of Shi Mengwan. Shi Mengwan ran with him. She even thought that it was fortunate that the youth was injured. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to catch up. Yes, the youth's legs seemed to be injured, so he couldn't walk fast. He ran for a long time, but when he realized that he couldn't get rid of Shi Mengwan, he finally gave up. He didn't take another detour. Instead, he walked directly into an extremely small alley at the side. Then, he found one of the doors with familiarity and pushed the door open. Shi Mengwan stood at the door for a long time. Seeing that the youth had no intention of closing the door, she followed him in. The house was very small. She could almost see the entire layout at a glance. There was a small living room with a room inside. On the right was the kitchen and the bathroom. There was nothing else. The living room was very small. There was an extremely shabby cloth sofa. The original color could no longer be seen. The coffee table in front of the sofa was also missing a corner. There was an open medicine box on it. The youth took out bandages and medicine from inside and treated his wound. The most serious part of his injury was on his hand, and with just one hand, he couldn't apply good medicine to himself. Looking at the youth's overly clumsy movements, Shi Mengwan went forward and sat down beside him. She took the medicine from his hand. "Let me help you," she said. "You know how I won't." Shi Mengwan shook her head honestly. "However, I've seen the veterinarian near our house bandage the dog's wound." She felt the young man's face darken in an instant. Startled, she retracted her hand that was holding the medicine. "You're cursing me?" The youth was not old, but his entire body was filled with a vicious aura. Shi Mengwan had never seen such a person before. She shook her head quickly. The youth didn't say anything else. Shi Mengwan could finally start treating his wounds. She was clumsy. After all, she had never done anything like this before. The youth kept gritting his teeth, as if he was enduring something. After more than half an hour, she finally treated all the wounds on the young man's body. The rest of the youngster's body was covered with superficial wounds. The more serious ones were on his feet and elbows. She finished bandaging the wound and found that it was very ugly. For a moment, she looked a little ashamed. Fortunately, the young man didn't mind. After the young man's wounds were bandaged, he got up and walked to the kitchen. He looked around as if he was looking for something to eat. However, he found that the kitchen was empty. The young man's expression became more and more unsightly. Shi Mengwan seemed to know what he was thinking. Thinking of the scene of him eating bread in big mouthfuls, she looked at him very quietly. "Are you still hungry? Do you want to eat? I'll buy it for you." The young man's sinister gaze fell on her again. Shi Mengwan shrunk her neck. She took out a few bills from her pocket. They were the only ones left after she bought the bus ticket. The young man looked at the money in her hand. This time, he didn't stand on ceremony and took it. "Stay here and don't run around." The young man's voice was changing, so his voice was actually a little unpleasant to hear. Coupled with his vicious face, ordinary people might feel afraid. However, Meng didn't feel afraid. Strangely, she always believed that the young man wouldn't hurt her. After the young man left, she took a look at the house and tidied it up. Actually, there was nothing to tidy up. This place was too dilapidated and old. There was nothing at all. However, she was the eldest daughter of the family, so she was used to doing these things. Not long after she tidied up, the young man came back with 2 servings of fried rice noodles in his hands. Later, Meng found out that the alley extended in all directions. There are many places to go, and there are many places to sell supper. Although this fried rice noodle stall was just a roadside stall, the taste was very good and it was very cheap. Meng had just eaten a piece of bread and a portion of rice noodles. She only ate half of it before she couldn't eat anymore. When she put down her chopsticks, she clearly felt the young man's gaze fall on her, as if he was dissatisfied with her wasting food. Meng's appetite wasn't big to begin with. Although she came from a small place, her family had developed well in the past few years, and their family's conditions weren't bad. Speaking of which, she really hadn't suffered much. The young man finished his portion of rice noodles. He silently took the remaining half of Meng's portion and finished it as well. Meng felt inexplicably embarrassed. The young man didn't seem to notice her situation. The living room wasn't big, but there was a large balcony. From here, she could see the landmarks of Lin City in the distance, as well as the large green area under the community. Overall, Meng was very satisfied with her own state. She was still young, but she had her own studio, a house, and a car. Meng entered the door silently. Instead of greeting Jean Hauser, she went to the living room cabinet and took out the medicine box. Jean Hauser stood in the living room, as if he was looking at the environment in front of him. Meng glanced at him and sat down on the sofa. Jean Hauser took a few steps forward and sat down as well. The house was warm-toned and very cozy. The sofa in the corner wasn't big, but it was very comfortable to sit on. Meng opened the medicine box, glanced at Jean Hauser, and motioned for him to take out his hand. He was wearing a light-colored shirt today. The blood was stained on the shirt and had already stuck to the flesh. Meng's expression didn't look too good. Everything in front of her was developing in a strange direction. For a moment, she thought that the person in front of her was her dear brother. She even suggested to send him to the hospital, but in the end, she brought this man home. She skillfully cut open the man's sleeve and looked at the wound on it. Fortunately, it wasn't very serious. If he needed stitches, he would really have to go to the hospital. Her movements were very skilled. It was obvious that she had specially practiced it. Speaking of which, could her skills be like this? It was really because she had bandaged her dear brother's wounds too many times. She thought of that unruly youth again. She knew him from the time he was beaten up. After that, he would always fight with others from time to time and get injured from time to time. From the beginning, she was clumsy, but later on, she skillfully treated all kinds of wounds for him. Realizing that she had associated Jean Hauser with her dear brother again, Meng's expression didn't look too good. They weren't the same person, not the same person. She kept reminding herself to keep herself awake. Her movements were very fast, and the wound on Jean Hauser's hand was quickly bandaged. She looked at Jean Hauser's face again. The corners of his face were sharp, and his wheat-colored skin was smooth and tight. It seemed that his fighting skills had also improved. After all, every time he was beaten in the past, there would be injuries on his face. She was looking at Jean Hauser, and Jean Hauser was also looking at her. He seemed to be able to tell that Meng was a little absent-minded. Chapter 652. Meng didn't notice Jean Hauser's gaze. Her thoughts were a little adrift. For so many years, she had been searching and searching. At first, he was filled with hope, but later, he felt that his hope was getting slimmer and slimmer. She didn't forget her dear brother. but she kept him in the depths of her heart. She would not easily recall it. Otherwise, she would feel very uncomfortable. But ever since she met Jean Hauser, she had been reminiscing about the past more and more. She didn't like it very much. The more she recalled, the more it reminded her that she and dear brother might not be fated to be together. Just like today, she had already regarded Jean Hauser and her dear brother as two different people, but she saw this side of Jean Hauser. For a moment, she was in a trance, as if she had returned to more than 10 years ago. He was the same, always arguing with others, always fighting with others. She could not help thinking of them as one person. It was too similar. Not only her looks, but also, suddenly, an enlarged face appeared in front of him. The malicious eyes that were no different from those in her memory stared at her. Shi Mingwan was startled and took a step back. Behind her was the sofa, and her back touched the back of it. Jean Hauser's body leaned over, and Shi Mingwan gulped. "Mr. Jean, the wound has been bandaged. You can go now." Jean Hauser pursed his lips slightly and looked at the nervousness on Shi Mingwan's face. He stretched his hands forward and placed them on her sides. "Where are you going?" Shi Mingwan blinked. "Where to? Of course, it was to leave this place. Mr. Jean, this is my home. I know this is your home. When you brought a strange man home, didn't you think about the consequences?" Seeing that Jean Hauser's face was getting closer and closer, Shi Mingwan pressed hard against his chest. "Mr. Jean, sorry for the misunderstanding. She couldn't say the rest of her words. She just thought of him as her dear brother. She just replaced the past memories in front of her. However, the man in front of her did not know her and did not admit that he was her big brother. In short, it's all a misunderstanding. It's getting late, and I still need a rest. Please go ahead." Jean Hauser's body blocked her way. Shi Mingwan didn't move, nor did she escape. She didn't want what happened in the elevator to happen again. "Mr. Jean, can you make way?" Jean Hauser stared at Shi Mingwan's face for a long time, and finally stood up very slowly. Shi Mingwan didn't relax because he stood up. The other party was too tall. She was nearly 1.7 meters tall, and her sitting posture only made the other party look even taller. She didn't know that when her eyes stared at Jean Hauser's face with vigilance, there was an infinite flirtatious look in her eyes. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, and there was a seductive air about her, but she was completely unaware of her own charms. Jean Hauser stood there, not in a hurry to leave, nor was he in a hurry to move. Shi Mingwan was a little nervous. She gulped. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Jean Hauser's eyes darkened at his eagerness to leave. Not only did he not leave, but he also leaned down. Shi Mingwan felt more and more nervous and leaned back. It was almost a silent invitation. Jean Hauser looked at her half-open lips and stopped less than a centimeter away from her lips. Breathing hot, Shi Mingwan stared at the enlarged face in front of her and felt inexplicably thirsty. She subconsciously pursed her lips. Jean Hauser's face leaned closer, almost touching hers. "Miss Shi." Jean Hauser's voice sounded a little low. "If you don't intend to let a man do anything to you, don't casually bring a man home, and don't casually put on such a seductive posture." After saying this, Jean Hauser got up and left. The sound of the door closing brought Shi Mingwan back to her senses from the other party's words. After she came back to her senses, she was filled with anger. What did this Jean Hauser mean? What did he mean by casually bringing someone home? And what did he mean by casually putting on a seductive posture? Shi Mingwan wanted to curse, but the person who could make her curse had already left. She wanted to curse, but she didn't know where to start. Gritting her teeth, Shi Mingwan couldn't suppress her anger no matter what. She told herself that if she still cared about Jean Hauser next time, she would be a pig. She was so angry. When Jean Hauser entered the door, he found that the lights in the hall were shining. Chun Fei sat on the sofa, and her expression wasn't particularly good. She kept a straight face until Jean Hauser entered the door. Chun Fei's expression finally looked better. She stood up as if she was flying and quickly pounced in front of Jean Hauser. "Brother Hao, you're back." Chun Fei's eyes were a little red. When she walked in front of Jean Hauser, she had already cleaned up the expression on her face. When he entered the door, he put on his suit jacket and the wound on his hand was covered up. Chun Fei didn't notice that when she pounced on him, she touched his wound. Zhang Hao's brows furrowed imperceptibly. He resisted the urge to pull Chun Fei's hand away. It's so late. Why aren't you sleeping yet? You still know that it's so late? Chun Fei pouted. It's so late, and you still haven't come back. Don't you know that I'll be worried? Go to sleep. Zhang Hao's voice was considered gentle, but he didn't coax her like before. Chun Fei was a little unhappy. Brother Hao, where did you go? Nowhere. I'm just working overtime at the company. I must tell Dad not to give you so much work. Look at you. You don't even have time to accompany me. Don't mess around. Zhang Hao's voice was a little serious. Work is work, not play. If you don't want to say it, then I won't say it. Chun Fei became more and more unhappy. But you're always busy. You used to be willing to accompany me, but recently, you've been spending less and less time with me. Her tone was full of complaints. Zhang Hao looked at her, and his expression softened. I'll accompany you after I'm done with my work. You said it. Chun Fei hooked his arm. Don't lie to me. If you stand me up, I'll tell Dad. What are you going to tell me? The sudden voice made the two of them look at the stairs together. Chun Yongchang had come down at some point and looked at the two of them holding hands. Dad. When Chun Fei saw her father, she quickly let go of her hand and ran towards Chun Yongchang. Why aren't you sleeping yet? My precious daughter isn't sleeping. How can I sleep? Chun Yongchang patted Chun Fei's hand. What's wrong? You haven't said what you want to tell me yet. Let me tell you, give Brother Hao less work. Look, he's so busy that he doesn't have time to accompany me. Really? Chun Yongchang glanced at Zhang Hao, then looked at Chun Fei. You're not young anymore. Don't be too willful. Hao is someone who wants to do great things. How can he accompany you every day? I don't care. I just want Brother Hao to accompany me. It was rare for Chun Fei to be willful. Her tone was full of coquettishness. Chun Yongchang couldn't do anything about this daughter. Good. But it's getting late now. You should go to sleep. Then Chun Fei looked at Zhang Hao, wanting him to send her back to her room. Go to sleep first. I have something to discuss with Hao. Got it. Chun Fei pouted, her face full of unhappiness. Dad hates it the most. It's not enough for Brother Hao to help you during the day, but at night, you still want to snatch him from me. Fei. Chun Yongchang called her name. Chun Fei was unhappy. She stomped her feet and went upstairs. A grown girl really can't be kept at home. Chun Yongchang looked at his daughter, glanced at Zhang Hao, and walked towards the study. Zhang Hao followed behind him silently. The study was on the first floor. Chun Yongchang entered the door and gestured for Zhang Hao to sit down. He didn't sit down, but stood opposite the desk. It's been so many years, but you're still so polite. Chun Yongchang seemed to be lamenting. Zhang Hao didn't respond, and he didn't need his response. There haven't been many things happening in the company recently. You came back so late today. Is there something wrong? There was a hint of inquiry in Chun Yongchang's eyes. It's nothing big. Zhang Hao's voice was very indifferent. It's just a small matter. I've already taken care of it. I believe you know what to do. Chun Yongchang didn't continue this topic, but changed the topic. That year, Fei saved you and brought you back. It's been more than 10 years now. You know how Fei feels about you. This child has been stubborn since she was young. She has decided on you, and as her father, I can't do anything about it. You're not young anymore. It's time to think about starting a family. Don't you think so? Zhang Hao was silent and didn't respond. The last time Fei was hospitalized, you also promised me that you would marry her. Although her body is better now, she still has to be carefully nurtured. To be honest, I don't feel at ease handing her over to someone else. After so many years, I've seen your character. Hao, I should be able to trust you, right? Zhang Hao pursed his lips slightly and finally nodded gently. I promised you that I would take care of her. Okay, it's getting late. You should go and rest first. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. Accompany Fei. Zhang Hao didn't refute. He nodded slightly and turned to leave. After returning to his room, Zhang Hao took off his suit jacket. There were still bloodstains on the shirt inside. He took it off and threw it into the trash can. His gaze was a little gloomy as he looked at the bandaged wound. Thinking of Qin Yongchang's words just now, he took out his phone. He pressed a set of numbers from memory. After the call was connected, he only said one sentence: "I agree to what you said last time." After hanging up the phone, Jean Hauser deleted the call record. He made 2 more calls. Each time, he only said a few words and deleted the call record. After putting down the phone, he lay down on the bed. His tightly closed eyes covered up all his emotions. Shi Mingwan hung up the phone, but she still couldn't hide the shock in her heart. She had long known that Su Qingsang was the illegitimate daughter of the Su family. However, she didn't expect that Su Qingsang's mother would come knocking on her door one day. This was really amazing. Today, Su Qingsang called to ask her to go to dinner and meet Su Qingsang's mother. Shi Mingwan later met Xiang Kaiping, an Annie who looked quite kind and cute. Shi Mingwan liked her very much. When she saw her, she would think of her mother. Thinking of her mother, Shi Mingwan remembered that during the Mid-Autumn Festival, she was busy drawing and only stayed home for 2 days before returning to Lin City. Later, her mother called, and her words were full of disappointment. Perhaps she should choose a day to go back again. It was winter in Lin City, and the weather slowly turned cold. That day was designer Tong Yin's birthday. After Song Seeking Studio got on track in the 2nd year, Shi Mingwan began to be busy alone. She hired 2 designers. One was Zhou Xinglei, and the other was Tong Yin. The 2 designers were a man and a woman. Neither of them was very experienced, but the design concept was very compatible with her. Tong Yin was 1 year younger than her, and today was her birthday. She didn't have a boyfriend yet, so in the past few years, she had been treating everyone to dinner to celebrate her birthday. At first, because Tong Yin didn't have a boyfriend, Shi Mingwan, as the boss, treated her to dinner to celebrate her birthday. Later, she simply turned the birthdays of the studio's staff into a gathering day. When it was time to get off work, Shi Mingwan brought her assistant Xiao Ji, secretary Xiao Qiu, and design assistant Shang Ji in her car. The other design assistant, Cheng Jiang, followed Tong Yin into Zhou Xinglei's car. The 7 of them went to Chaowen Courtyard together. In the past, Shi Mingwan didn't spend so much money, but since Su Qingsang got married, Hua Jinyao often gave her all kinds of expense cards. In the past, Su Qingsang foolishly thought that their company had good benefits. Only now did she know that it wasn't good benefits. It was simply President Hua using all kinds of excuses to please his wife. Especially since Hua Jinyao's identity was known in Lin City. There were too many people who wanted to please Hua Jinyao. Many of the membership cards in her hands were given by Su Qingsang. It had to be said that the title of Mrs. Hua was very useful. Shi Mingwan brought her 6 employees into Chaowen Courtyard. The chefs here could cook specialties from all over the country. Although Shi Mingwan was from the south, her taste was heavy and she liked spicy food. She ordered 2 spicy dishes and left the rest to Tong Yin, the birthday girl. Halfway through the meal, Shi Mingwan received a call. She asked Xiao Qiu to take care of them while she went outside to get the cake. Yes, as a good boss, ordering a cake for her employees was also one of her considered actions. The cake Shi Mingwan ordered was delivered to the hall of Chaowen Courtyard. She took the cake and was about to walk into the private room when she saw Jean Hauser's figure from the corner of her eye. She couldn't help but stop in her tracks. It had been almost a month since she last saw Jean Hauser. During this month, she tried her best not to think of Jean Hauser and that man. She kept hypnotizing herself and telling herself that that man was no longer her dear brother. He was a hooligan, a bastard. He liked to mock her and look down on her. However, she didn't expect to see Jean Hauser again when she was about to succeed. He was standing in the corridor with a woman standing beside him. That woman wasn't Chen Feifei, but someone else. When Shi Mingwan was about to enter the private room, she saw the woman fall into Jean Hauser's arms, and Jean Hauser's arms were around her waist. That scene made Shi Mingwan frown. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. Dear brother could probably only become a shadow in her memory. She turned around and entered her private room without looking back. What she didn't see was that after she left, Jean Hauser's hand had already left the woman's hand. I'm really sorry, President Jean. Ling Shui steadied herself and slowly removed her hand from Jean House's hand. The heels were too high, and I couldn't stand firm. I almost bumped into President Jean. It's okay. Jean House was expressionless. Your father is still waiting for us in the private room. Miss Ling, please. President Jean, you actually don't have to be so polite. Ling Xue nodded at Jean House. Speaking of which, I'm about the same as President Jean. You, Miss Ling, come and go like this. Isn't that too polite? Why don't you call me by my name? Ling Xue. Ling Xue was pretty good looking. She was also very confident in her family background and appearance. At this moment, her gaze at Jean House was naked and direct. She almost said it out loud. I'm interested in you as a man. Jean House's expression didn't change. He took 2 steps forward and opened the door of the private room. Miss Ling, please. Ling Xue took a deep look at Jean House and slowly entered the door. Ling Xue's father was the chairman of a company that worked with the Chun family. Recently, the 2 companies were discussing a cooperation project. Chen Yongchang's health hadn't been good these few days, so he handed this matter to Jean House. Today was the day to sign the contract. Originally, after the contract was signed, it would be over. However, the other party was a business partner after all. Chen Yongchang asked Jean House to do his part and treat the other party to a meal. The place was set at Chowan Courtyard. Jean House brought his secretary, Lu Xian, over, and Chairman Ling brought his daughter, Ling Xue. It was inevitable that they would have to drink at the dinner table. Jean House's alcohol tolerance wasn't bad. This was also the reason why Chen Yongchang was at ease to let him come out to socialize. Lu Xian tried to block it, but Jean House still had to drink the wine from Chairman Ling. After 3 rounds of drinking, Chairman Ling looked drunk. Brother Jean, I really admire you. You're so young, but you're so capable. Brother Yongchang is really lucky to have a talent like you. Chairman Ling, you're too polite. Jean House didn't take such praise seriously. There wasn't much pride on his face. Chairman Ling was also someone who had been in the business world for many years. He really admired Jean House, who didn't show his emotions and strived to be perfect in everything he did. He envied Chen Yongchang's good luck and couldn't help but look at Ling Xue again. Come, Xue, let me toast Brother Jean again. Ling Xue picked up her wine glass and toasted Jean House. President Jean, let me toast you. Jean House didn't decline. He picked it up and drank. Ling Xue smiled. She glanced at Chairman Ling. Dad, I've already toasted you. Now it's your turn. Good. Chairman Ling raised his wine glass. Brother Jean, let me toast you. I wish us a happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Jean House drank it in one gulp again. Lu Xian wanted to stop him, but he couldn't. Jean House drank a lot. When he was about to leave, Chairman Ling stood up. Brother Jean, I drank a little too much today. Do you mind letting your secretary send me home? I don't mind. Lu Xian didn't drink much today. Jean House called him over so that he could send Chairman Ling and his daughter home after he got drunk. He watched as Chairman Ling left with Lu Xian. Jean House stood up and planned to leave as well. However, the door of the private room was opened again. This time, Ling Xue came in. President Jean, why aren't you leaving yet? Miss Ling, I dropped something. Come up and look for it. As Ling Xue spoke, she started to look for it in her original seat. Jean House wasn't in a hurry to leave out of politeness. What are you looking for, Miss Ling? A necklace. Ling Xue pointed at her neck. I was wearing it just now. I don't know why it's gone now. Jean House frowned slightly. Just as he was about to say goodbye, Ling Xue raised her head and looked at him. President Jean, do you mind helping me look for it? I don't mind. At this time, Jean House couldn't refuse. He was still working in Chen Yongchang's company, and the person in front of him was still his collaborator. He bent down and helped Ling Xue look for her necklace. The table in the private room was very big, and Ling Xue was beside Jean House. She was wearing a V-neck dress today. When she bent down, Jean House could see the scenery when she lowered her head. He turned his face away without any fluctuation, but Ling Xue exclaimed at this moment. Here! As she spoke, she reached out her hand in his direction. As the two of them were squatting, Jean House didn't notice and was actually knocked to the ground by Ling Shui's suddenly approaching body. Ling Shui's hand reached behind Zhang Haoze. This way, she was almost sticking to Zhang Haoze's body. "I'm sorry, President Zhang." Ling Shui picked up the necklace. Zhang Haoze didn't say anything and waited for her to leave his arms. At this moment, Ling Shui took the opportunity to press on his body and pressed her hands against his chest. "President Zhang, how should I thank you for helping me find the necklace?" "You're welcome. Miss Ling, can you get up first?" Ling Shui didn't say anything. She lowered her head and was about to kiss Zhang Haoze's lips. Zhang Haoze avoided her, and Ling Shui's kiss landed on Zhang Haoze's face. Zhang Haoze frowned. Just as he was about to push Ling Shui away, he suddenly realized that something was wrong with his body. He felt the heat coming from little Yu Fu, and the waves of heat surged down. He suddenly looked at Ling Shui, his gaze sharp and cold like a knife. "President Zhang, you're so handsome." She had seen many handsome men, but she liked people like Zhang Haoze. He was abstinent, cold, and looked like he was 1,000 miles away. She liked this kind of man, and she liked this kind of style. She couldn't help but want to have a closer relationship with Zhang Haoze. Even if she couldn't marry him or be with him, it didn't matter. She only needed a one-night marriage. To her, having such a top-notch man was a bargain. Unfortunately, when they were talking about cooperation, no matter how she hinted, Zhang Haoze didn't seem to understand. Helpless, she could only think of another way. Today was the day the two families signed the contract. When she knew that Zhang Haoze had arranged a meal, she made an appointment with him in Chaowen Courtyard. Chapter 653. She had seen Chun Feifei before. She was a sickly person. She heard that she had heart disease and looked weak. She hated women like that the most. She felt that they were pretentious and fake. She was an ambitious woman, and Ling Shui never hid her ambition. "President Zhang, I've admired you since the first time I saw you." As she spoke, she reached into Zhang Haoze's clothes. Even if only a small part of his wheat-colored chest was exposed, it was enough to make her imagination run wild. Zhang Haoze's breathing became heavier. He finally understood that this woman had added something to the wine he had just drunk. "President Zhang." Ling Shui saw his face turn red. She leaned down, pressed her slender hand on his chest, and unbuttoned one of his buttons. "I really admire you. I'm very willing to have a chance to communicate with you further." As she spoke, she had already unbuttoned the second button of his shirt. Zhang Haoze held her hand at this moment. Ling Shui's eyes widened, but Zhang Haoze pushed her away and stood up. His movements were too fast, so fast that Ling Shui didn't have time to stop him. "Ew." She only said one word before she saw Zhang Haoze's face turn red, and he took 2 steps back. He looked down at Ling Shui's face. His breathing was a little heavy, but it couldn't hide the coldness in his eyes. "I appreciate Miss Ling's good intentions. I'll remember Miss Ling's appreciation for me. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." His voice was a little low and a little hoarse. In fact, the medicine that Ling Shui had given him made his body heat up, and he felt very uncomfortable. He used his greatest willpower to suppress the heat in his body. He quickly left the private room. After a short moment of surprise, Ling Shui quickly reacted. She stood up and wanted to chase after Zhang Haoze. However, she realized that Zhang Haoze could no longer be seen in the corridor outside. She stomped her feet in hatred. She knew that if she missed this opportunity today, she wouldn't have it again. She was angry, but there was nothing she could do. Now, she could only wait for the next chance to come again. After Shi Mengwan sent Tong Yin and the others away, she walked in the direction of her car. She didn't drink. She had always followed the habit of not drinking when driving, and not driving when drinking. Tong Yin and the others said that they were going to karaoke, but she wasn't interested. Although he was easy to talk to, he was still the boss. With her around, Tong Yin and the others would probably feel uncomfortable. She might as well promise them that she would pay for the expenses, but she wouldn't be going. After leaving Chaowen Courtyard, Shi Mengwan walked towards her car. It was nighttime in Chaowen Courtyard, and the parking area was a little dark. Passing through the greenery on both sides, The parking space around the corner was hers. However, his body was suddenly pulled into the bushes. The sudden change gave Shi Mengwan a fright. Her first reaction was to struggle, but as her body moved closer to him, she smelled the familiar scent of mint. The light was dim, but she could see clearly. The person in front of him was Jean Hauser, his reddened eyes in the dark, his slightly heavy breathing, and his hand that was tightly wrapped around her waist. You. She only had time to say the word you before she felt a warm sensation on her lips. What followed was an almost suffocating plunder. He was like a leopard that had bitten its prey. Once it was bitten, it refused to let go. Kiss, fierce. Indulgence. It was as if it wanted to swallow her whole. This was Shi Mengwan's first kiss. She had never been kissed like this before. Or perhaps she had. When she was kissed, her consciousness became a little erratic. She remembered that this couldn't be considered her first kiss. Her first kiss was lost when she was 12 years old. The strength on her lips increased again. She felt pain and raised her foot to kick the other party's crotch. However, she neglected her current position. She was pulled over by the man, and her body was half nestled against his chest. She was pressed into his arms and kissed wantonly. The moment she raised her foot, her body lost balance, and she got closer to him. It was like a branch that was entangled by a vine. They were intertwined. There was me and you and me. They couldn't tell each other apart. Shi Mengwan felt her body being hugged by him. She took a step back and leaned against the tree trunk beside her. She wasn't wearing thick clothes, and the cold and hard tree trunk made her feel uncomfortable. She struggled again. Just as the other party's hand was about to reach for the hem of her clothes, she couldn't help but raise her hand and slap the other party's face. She was a little angry, but more so resentful. What did he take her for? The humiliation from before. Today it was a real bullying. She had just seen him cuddling with a woman, and now he was pestering her again. In the end, he had changed. He was no longer the person she remembered. Or could it be that he had just returned to his true nature? That he had always been a casual person? No matter which one it was, she didn't want to continue. The paw sound was especially clear in the night. The man's movements stopped for a moment. She was carried into the man's arms. The man's chin was pressed against the pit of her neck, and his breathing was heavier than before. Shi Mengwan smelled the smell of alcohol. She tried to push the other party. Strangely, this time, she actually succeeded. After pushing the other party away, she quickly ran to her car. The car door opened twice. She didn't know what she was nervous about. When she got into the car, Shi Mengwan realized that someone was sitting in the front passenger seat. Jean Hauser. His face was abnormally red. His breathing was heavy, and the smell of alcohol was strong. He seemed to be drunk. Shi Mengwan leaned her body towards the car door and stared at Jean Hauser with a face full of vigilance. Mr. Jean, drive. Jean Hauser's voice was low and hoarse. He seemed to have seen Ling Shui come out. He didn't want her to see him in Shi Mengwan's car. President Jean? I said drive. Shi Mengwan gritted her teeth, stepped on the accelerator for the last time, and quickly left. The moment her car drove away, Ling Shui arrived at the parking lot and looked at Jean Hauser's car, which was still parked there. Jean Hauser hadn't left yet. That made sense. He drank alcohol and was drugged. The alcohol had triggered the drug, so it wouldn't be easy to get rid of it. He should still be in the villa. With this thought, Ling Shui went back to look for Jean Hauser. Shi Mengwan stopped the car halfway. She wanted Jean Hauser to get lost. She wanted to leave her car, but Jean Hauser didn't look right. His eyes were tightly shut, and he seemed to be very uncomfortable. Shi Mengwan's brows furrowed tightly. President Jean? Mr. Jean? Jean Hauser seemed to have heard her. He opened his eyes and glanced at her. Where's your house? Tell me the address. I'll send you back. The other party was her dear brother, the person she had always cared about and wanted to find. She didn't want to really leave him on the road. Jean Hauser didn't answer her question. Instead, he closed his eyes. Mr. Jean? Jean Hauser? Shi Mengwan called out a few more times, but she didn't get a response. Helpless, she could only drive the car back to her home. When the car was parked, Shi Mengwan got out of the car first. She originally wanted to just leave Jean Hauser here. After thinking about it, She went around and opened the car door. Mr. Jean? Jean Hausa didn't move. Ming-Wan gritted her teeth. Mr. Jean, can you get out of the car by yourself? Jean Hausa's eyes seemed to move. Ming-Wan took a deep breath and bent down to look at him. Mr. Jean, can you hear me? Jean Hausa finally reacted. He opened his eyes. Ming-Wan was shocked by his gaze. His eyes seemed to be even redder than before. Are you okay? Jean Hausa suddenly reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. She almost went limp, but he got out of the car. Ming-Wan instinctively supported his body. Most of his weight was on her. He was very heavy, and Ming-Wan almost couldn't support him. Being so close to him, his body was full of the smell of alcohol, mixed with the faint smell of mint. Ming-Wan closed the car door and looked up at him. Mr. Jean, can you stand steadily? Jean Hausa narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. However, he almost carried her into the apartment. Ming-Wan followed him helplessly and brought him upstairs. As soon as they entered, Ming-Wan threw him on the sofa. During the short journey just now, she was covered in sweat. Jean Hausa lay on the sofa and didn't move. His face was even redder than before. There was a flash of worry in Ming-Wan's eyes, but it was only for a moment. Soon, she didn't plan to care about Jean Hausa anymore. No matter how worried she was, it was useless. He had a fiancée and had forgotten about her. She turned around and went back to her room to change her clothes. She planned to take a shower and sleep. Today's torment was enough. After returning to her room, Ming-Wan had just found her pajamas and took off her top. The door to the room was suddenly opened, and she was shocked. Before she could turn around, her body was already hugged by Jean Hausa. In front of her was the bed. Without thinking, he directly pressed her down on the bed. Mr. Jean, her lips were blocked. It was the same domineering and predatory kiss as before. This time, she didn't even have a place to escape. Behind her was the bed. In front of her was his strong chest. Ming-Wan struggled, but she wasn't Jean Hausa's match at all. Woo-woo. Jean Hausa, let go of me. But she couldn't make a sound. Other than the sound of clothes rubbing against each other, there's only the sound of cloth rubbing against each other. She was anxious. Jean Hausa didn't speak in the car just now because he had been suppressing the drug in his body. But in this environment, the entire room was filled with Ming-Wan's faint aura. The drug seemed to be unable to be suppressed anymore. He kissed Ming-Wan as if he was biting her. Ming-Wan was in pain. The moment Jean Hausa's lips left her chin, she used all her strength to push him away. She quickly got up and wanted to run to the other side. But before she could run away, Jean Hausa pounced on her again. Ming-Wan was anxious. She pressed her hands against his chest with all her might, forcing him to see her clearly. Jean Hausa? Jean Hausa, look clearly. Who am I? I'm Ming-Wan, not Qin Fei. Look clearly. Jean Hausa's movements paused for a moment. Ming-Wan took the opportunity to push his body away again. Jean Hausa, you have a girlfriend. Please calm down. She didn't know if he could listen to her, and she didn't know how much he could listen to, but she had to say it. Jean Hausa's body froze there, and he kept panting heavily. His eyes were red, and he seemed to be trying his best to control himself. Ming-Wan saw that his hands were tightly clenched into fists, and his body looked very stiff. A trace of unconcealable worry flashed across her eyes. Jean Hausa glanced at her and didn't say anything. He stood up as if he was about to leave. However, his footsteps staggered at this moment, and he was about to fall. Ming-Wan went forward to support him without thinking. Jean Hausa, was he okay? Ming-Wan finally realized that something was wrong with Jean Hausa. Not only was he drunk, but his skin was also boiling hot. Even through a layer of shirt, she could feel the heat of his skin. You're sick. Jean Hausa stared at Ming-Wan's red lips that were open and closed and pushed her away forcefully. Jean Hausa? Ming-Wan took 2 steps back. Thinking of Jean Hausa's actions just now, she seemed to understand something. Do you want to wash your face? She went forward to support Jean Hausa. This time, he didn't push her away. He hugged her tightly and kept rubbing against her body. Sure, Mingwan half supported and half dragged him towards the bathroom. Her house wasn't big. She was also a person who didn't care about anything when she was busy. There was only a shower in the bathroom, but no bathtub. She helped John Hausa stand under the shower. Do you want to take a cold shower? She read the book as if it would be better this way, although she didn't know if it was true. As she spoke, Jean Hausa had already turned on the water. Sure, Mingwan was caught off guard and was drenched. She had always cherished her body. She never took a cold shower or drank cold water. Suddenly being drenched like this, she couldn't stay any longer. She let go of Jean Hausa and quickly left. The sound of water behind her continued, but she didn't want to care anymore. When she returned to her room, she took her pajamas and hurried to another guest bathroom to take a shower. At this time, she had to be glad that she didn't connect the guest bathroom to the main bathroom and turn it into a big bathroom. Okay, when she came out, she found that the sound of water in the bathroom was still there. She frowned slightly. She wanted to go in and take a look, but she was afraid that Jean Hausa's symptoms were still there. After thinking about it, she decided not to care anymore. But this was her room, and the sound of water coming from the bathroom made it impossible for her to fall asleep. She turned around and went to the study. When she sat down, she realized that she wasn't in the mood to draw. She thought of her first kiss. When she was 12 years old, she lost her first kiss. At that time, she had been living with her dear brother for almost half a year. Dear brother was very good to her and took care of her, but he often had a cold face. No, he seemed to have a cold face to everyone. Even if he cared about her, he often said it with a cold face. That time, not long after the Spring Festival, it was the Lantern Festival. Southerners had to eat glutinous rice balls during the Lantern Festival. She used to live in the countryside, so these habits were well preserved. On the day before the Lantern Festival, she casually said that tomorrow was the Lantern Festival and she wanted to eat glutinous rice balls. The next day, dear brother really brought glutinous rice balls back. She was overjoyed, but that glutinous rice ball was so small. Is this glutinous rice ball? Why is it so small? She looked at the 2 bowls of glutinous rice balls and then at dear brother. Dear brother nodded heavily and told her that this was glutinous rice ball. It was fine if she ate it, but it was fine if she didn't. Each place had its own customs. Sure Mingwan thought that perhaps in Lin's city, glutinous rice balls were so small. She didn't know that dear brother didn't buy any glutinous rice balls at all, but fermented rice balls. How old was she at that time? She was 12 years old. The little bit of alcohol in it was enough to make her drunk. Moreover, the one that dear brother bought had a strong smell of alcohol. However, the 2 children didn't notice it at that time. Dear brother, you're so good-looking. He was the best-looking person she had ever seen. Dear brother also ate that, and his face was a little red. The youth had never drunk alcohol before, and the alcohol in it was enough to make him a little drunk. He looked at the girl in front of him. The 12-year-old girl had already begun to develop. In half a year, her body had grown a little taller. Her figure was slender, and her facial features were beautiful, especially those eyes, which seemed to be able to speak. The youth suddenly felt a little hot. After the first month, he was already 16 years old. He was a big boy. You're very beautiful, too. The voice of the youth, who was approaching the end of his voice change period, wasn't as unpleasant to hear as it was at the beginning. Sure Mingwan blinked and looked at dear brother. No, you're even better looking. As she spoke, she sat beside the youth. Her small hand gently caressed the youth's facial features. Dear brother, your eyebrows are beautiful. Your nose is beautiful. Your eyes are beautiful. And your face is beautiful. And her hand landed on his lips. She blinked, and her voice was a little drunk. Your mouth is also beautiful. The youth felt even hotter than before. The girl in front of him had bright eyes, white teeth, and skin like porcelain. He caught her hand and turned it to stroke her face. Wan is also beautiful. Her eyes are beautiful. Her face is beautiful. And her mouth is also beautiful. He was imitating her words. Sure Mingwan blinked and suddenly smiled. You miss my nose. Is my nose not beautiful? Okay. The youth was very willing to coax her. Moreover, this was the truth. My Wan is beautiful in every way. Sure Mingwan smiled. Her smile made the small and shabby room seem to have suddenly become bright. The youth looked at Shi Mengwan's bright red lips in front of him. He couldn't help but lean over and gently kiss her lips. Their eyes met. The youth looked at the girl's clear eyes, and the girl looked at the youth's raised eyebrows. The youth suddenly realized what he had done and quickly retreated. The tips of his ears were dyed red without a trace. Half of it was because he was shy, and the other half was because he blamed himself. What was he doing just now? He actually kissed her. She was only 12 years old. Even after the new year, she would only be 13 years old. The girl didn't realize that she had been taken advantage of. She leaned over and held the youth's face. "Dear brother, your mouth is so sweet." He had just eaten the wine-fermented meatballs, so his lips naturally had the taste of the wine-fermented meatballs. She wanted to eat it again, so she leaned over and took the initiative to press her lips against the youth's. It was a young and clumsy kiss. It was both the youth and the girl's first time. After the kiss, the girl felt satisfied. Under the influence of alcohol, she went back to her room and fell into a deep sleep. She didn't know that because of her kiss, the youth had an extremely shameful and absurd dream at night. She also didn't know that the youth, who had always been lazy, woke up early the next morning and hurriedly washed his clothes. He even changed the bed sheets. Shi Mengwan only knew that when she woke up the next day, she still remembered the kiss from yesterday. She blushed a little, but she felt happy. That person was her dear brother. From that moment on, a seed was planted in the girl's extremely secretive thoughts. She liked her dear brother, so she naturally didn't hate this kiss. But from the next day, her dear brother started to avoid her. He would avoid her sight, avoid her contact, and Shi Mengwan thought that her dear brother hated her and felt that she was frivolous. Yes, which good girl would run away from home at the age of 12 or 13? What kind of good girl would live with a half-grown boy? And which good girl would take the initiative to kiss a boy? All the education she had received since she was young told her that these things were wrong and wrong. She blamed herself, felt guilty, and felt ashamed. She felt that she had done something wrong. She shouldn't have taken the initiative to kiss her dear brother. Her dear brother probably hated her too. For those few days, she was extremely sad. In the end, she couldn't help but wake up early one day when a youth was about to go out and block the youth's path. Bang! She seemed to hear something coming from the bathroom next door. Shi Mengwan's thoughts were pulled back by that sound. She hurriedly got up and returned to her room. She hesitated for a moment. Listening to the sound of water inside, she resolutely went in. The shower head had fallen off at some point. Jean Hauser sat on the ground. His clothes were messy, and all of them had been torn off by him. His body was abnormally red. His breathing was so heavy that she could easily hear it. She could even see Jean Hauser's tent that was set up high. He seemed to be very uncomfortable. He was constantly fighting with himself, but he didn't seem to succeed. The scene in front of her was really too special. Shi Mengwan's face was a little red, but she was more worried. She went forward and looked at Jean Hauser with obvious concern. Jean Hauser? Jean Hauser? She first turned off the shower head that was still spraying water at the wall. She bent down to help Jean Hauser up. Jean Hauser leaned against the wall with his eyes half closed. When he heard Shi Mengwan's voice, he opened his eyes. Shi Mengwan happened to bend down at this moment. She was shocked when she met Jean Hauser's eyes. It was a pair of wolf-like eyes, fierce, violent, sinister, and deep. Shi Mengwan's body instinctively retreated, but it was already too late. Jean Hauser pulled her into his arms and kissed her accurately. Shi Mengwan didn't even have time to let out a low cry before she was kissed speechless by Jean Hauser. His body had been drenched in cold water for so long, but not only did his temperature not drop, it became even hotter and hotter than before. He was sitting on the ground, so Shi Mengwan maintained a rather uncomfortable posture. She felt very uncomfortable and wanted him to let go of her. But how could Jean Hauser let her go? He easily picked her up and completely imprisoned her in his arms. Shi Mengwan tried to push him, but this time she failed. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't escape Jean Hauser's hands. More importantly, She was at a complete disadvantage at this moment. She was only wearing pajamas, and the thin fabric was easily lifted by Jean Hauser. He felt that it was troublesome, so he tore her clothes into pieces without any hesitation. Woo-woo, that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.